Welcome to Living 4D with Paul Chek. Today, Paul is talking with holistic nutritionist and Olympian Kris Buchanan. Kris is a member of the CIF Hall of Fame and was part of the USA field hockey team that competed in the 1996 Olympics. But high-intensity exercise plus processed food plus sugar created a dangerous combination for her immune system, and she experienced a severe wake-up call in 2007 when she was diagnosed with celiac disease and Hashimoto's. Going back to school to study holistic nutrition, Kris is now the founder of GOODONYA, an organic restaurant in Encinitas, California, and the creator of GOODONYA Hydrate, electrolyte and mineral drink mix.
Have you ever wondered what Olympic athletes are taught to eat by the nutritionists that educate them for Olympic committees? And what the cost of educating athletes that way is? Or why we allow big corporations selling junk food like Coke and McDonald's to sponsor the Olympics? What you are about to learn may both surprise you and help you realize the kind of corporate manipulation that makes it into the Olympics and our governments, and points to many of the problems the pandemic is bringing light to today. I think you'll find it fascinating to learn how former Olympic athlete Kris Buchanan went from being super fit to super sick. This put her on the path of seeking the truth of her health and in a desperate need to heal, which included becoming a holistic nutritionist. Ultimately, through realizing how dysfunctional our farming and food processing systems had become and how much disease results from poor quality foods and drinks, she was inspired to start several whole food restaurants offering only the best possible organic and free-range ingredients. GOODONYA, Kris's restaurant chain, is now famous and very busy in San Diego County, feeding athletes, mothers, children, and the general public excellent food because of what Kris learned in her often tumultuous journey to health. In this episode, Kris and I get into her journey and share dialogue on the challenges we all face with food, drinks, and corporate manipulation of the truth, such as food labeling, the dangerous toxic ingredients in most sports hydration drinks on the market, and what her solution to the problem is, and what you can learn to do too, why she started GOODONYA, her chain of whole food restaurants, how perpetual manipulation and lies by big food, pharma, medicine, and government agencies is linked with the pandemic we're all in, and why eating organic whole foods is actually cheaper than eating commercially grown and processed foods. I think you'll really enjoy learning from Kris Buchanan's journey, and it could save your life. Enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome to Living 4D with Paul Chek. Today I have an exciting guest, Kris Buchanan. She's a past Olympic athlete. She's the founder of GOODONYA Restaurants. She's got quite a comprehensive background in the study of holistic nutrition. And she was recommended to me by Autumn Smith, the founder of Paleo Valley, somebody I love and respect. And when Autumn told me about Kris, I said, well, let's get her on the show. So Kris, welcome to Living 4D.
Thank you, Paul. I love Autumn and you too. So this is a real honor.
Thank you. Are you familiar with my work at all? Other than you said you listen to some podcasts?
Eat, move, and be healthy. So absolutely.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, it's been around for a while, that one. It's still relevant.
It really is.
It's not outdated. People always ask me. I don't think. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I say people always ask me, isn't your book a bit outdated? Have you updated it? I say, no, there's nothing in that book that's outdated. It's based on the principles of human living, and human beings haven't changed much in the last 20, 50,000 years. So it'll be
right.
It'll be relevant for quite a while.
Yeah. It was actually a big influence on me. There was a few key people and things that kind of guided me, and that was one of them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I was really surprised when I interviewed Autumn, and she told me how my You Are What You Eat audio series and How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy is what really created her shift towards creating Paleo Valley, which just about knocked me out of my chair.
Yeah, I don't think, sometimes you realize what an impact you have. And same with, I found you through Sean Croxton.
Oh, is that right?
And
wow.
I started at the beginning with his Underground Wellness, just podcasting every day, and kind of learned, read all the books he recommended, and it's how I found you. And he really shaped my journey. He probably doesn't know as much as, he doesn't know that probably. I have told him, but.
Yeah, I love Sean. He's a great guy. I'd love it if you can give us an overview of your life path, your education and development as an athlete, and the key challenges you faced that led you to studying nutrition and creating GOODONYA and the products that you've created.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe a little bit of a similar story, I was a typical athlete. I mean, maybe I was a little bit better than a typical athlete, I guess.
You're an Olympic athlete.
Yeah, a full ride to college and then went to the Olympics. And I did that growing up. I was born in the 1970s, so the dawn of sort of processed food and candy, and we were literally professional candy eaters. We just figured out ways to make money, little entrepreneurs, so we could buy candy, and it was just what we did. And I think that sugar addiction stayed with me my whole life, all the way through college. Just all the junky bars that I ate, and Coca-Cola's the largest Olympic sponsor in the world. So then they were giving us Powerade and 40 grams of sugar in a 20-ounce bottle. So, I went through this whole time being, 7-10% body fat and an elite athlete. So I didn't really think there was anything wrong with what I was doing. Maybe I wouldn't have come in fifth. Maybe the four Final Fours that we went to in college, maybe I would have won one, second, third, fourth, and second. So we were very good. But when I retired from sports, I opened my own business, and so it's another set of stress on the body.
Yeah,
and I went from one restaurant to 5 pretty quickly.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were office park locations. So it was kind of brilliant, Monday through Friday, closed on nights and the weekends. But I started that when I was 30. So GOODONYA turns 19 this year. And about 4 years into it, my health just came crashing down. Full blown autoimmunity with Hashimoto's. I didn't know it then, but celiac, hypoglycemia was really bad. I couldn't stabilize my blood sugar. Thanks to Sean, actually, Croxton, he was talking about Cyrex Labs. So I got my testing done, the autoimmune panel. My pancreas was under attack as well as my thyroid. And the doctor's like, look, if you don't change things, you're going to be type 1 diabetic within the next few years. So that was I had tried to go gluten-free and, whatever. But that was a real wake-up call for me. I don't even know if I told Sean that. He probably saved my life, really. So getting into seeing a naturopath was another lucky twist, versus going to a conventional doctor. I live in Encinitas, and so a lot of my friends are nutritionists and naturopaths. So I went down that path and realized that here I am, a restaurant owner, and I don't really know that much about food. So I went back to school and got my holistic nutrition certificate and started podcasting and reading every book that I could come across. And I just started educating myself for myself, which I think is kind of a common path when people get sick and then they're like, okay, how do I fix this? Versus maybe preventing it in the first place. So for me, that's what did it. And I felt a little bit, or a lot actually, responsible to my customers. Unlike a lot of brands that launch products, they never really see their customers, but owning these restaurants and office parks, these people would come down into our little lobby restaurant like 4 or 5 times a day. We knew them by name. And I had watched a documentary called Sweet Misery.
I've seen it.
And it was, it's on artificial sweeteners. And we kind of always made fun of this guy, Bob. He came in every morning and he bought a Diet Coke. And we thought it was so funny. Like, hey, you're supposed to be drinking coffee. What are you doing drinking soda? He's like, no, this is my caffeine. So he'd take his $2 every morning, and then he'd come down for lunch. And he was just a really cool office dude that we knew. And then I see this movie, and the next morning he comes in and he sets his Diet Coke down on the counter. And I'm like, man, Bob, you really shouldn't be drinking that. I wanted to tell him that I had this moment. I was like, what am I doing selling it?
Right.
I have a Coca-Cola tattoo on my ankle. I was enamored with them as a young athlete. I thought they were so cool, giving all this money to sports. So I sold them in my restaurant, this was 15 years ago, before the organic movement really started. And we just tried to buy name brand, quality stuff, big brands. We always were local and fresh at GOODONYA, but those words don't really mean much when you start diving into ingredients.
Yeah, they don't. They're what's called by literary theorists empty signifiers. So the word natural, hemlock's natural, it'll kill you. Arsenic's natural, it can kill you.
So an empty signifier is a word or a series of words used by food manufacturers to create the illusion of something good, but doesn't really have any objective contents to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we get fooled by the marketing on the front of packages. And a big moment for me was when I went to the Natural Products Expo. We decided to launch a little protein bar through our restaurant, the GOODONYA bar. And we thought we were really cool. We got this little thing together in a package, and we went to the expo, and we couldn't afford to have a booth. So we were just walking around, and I would go look at all the ingredients of these products, and it might be 3 or 4 good ones. And then you get to the end and there'd be sucralose or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't really find any that were legit, in my opinion. And this was after, I had started studying stuff, and I was really disillusioned by this whole industry. And I was like, how can you call this a natural products expo when you allow artificial sweeteners into products that are here? And we were talking about this literally in a bar, right? And trying to think of a tagline for our new product line. And we sat there and we said, it's like they have 3 or 4 ingredients, and then they just ruin it with the last one or something. And every ingredient in the package should matter. And we're like, yeah, I mean, every ingredient matters. And so that became our thing.
I was going to say, there's your tagline.
And we trademarked it, and like matters has become, this whole thing from Black Lives Matter, and Verizon did like better matters, Mazda driving matters. So we kind of let it go over the years because it kind of just turned into, I don't know. We had You Matter trademarked for a while. Basically, it was just like every ingredient, all the way down to the salt. Don't give me sodium chloride, give me Celtic sea salt, give me Himalayan salt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how we started. And we started looking at the back of our olive oil, and it was blended with canola oil. And we're like, what's canola oil? Right. So
poison.
Poison. Right. We just started looking at every single ingredient. And I'm just really not that smart. I mean, I majored in field hockey. I'll be honest. I mean, I had to bank on common sense. Michael Pollan was a big influence for me, and just real food grown in traditional ways, processed and cooked in traditional ways. And so I just started really trying to find the most normal traditional foods that I could find.
Yeah. I think that's, I mean, I think if people did that in general, one, they would be a lot healthier. Their kids would be a lot healthier. 2, they'd spend a lot less money on doctor's visits and medical drugs. But more importantly, and this is, sort of a Paul Chek view on this, we don't have a government anymore. We have a corporate headquarters. And so I tell people it doesn't matter who the hell you're voting for, because it's just choosing between one devil and the next devil, and they're all bought and paid for. Point being is your only real vote is what you spend your money on. So when you start looking at how much money is being spent on food, sugar, all the things that are really causing diseases for people, if you're buying properly grown organic food or putting money in the hands of people that are caring for the food, caring for the animals, caring for the soil, then you're actually putting money back into the planet, which is a sustainable use. And to me, that's effective voting. And so, I think one of the things I was going to talk to you later on down below in our series of questions was organic certification, because they've destroyed all that. But when you look, for example, I was going to email this to you this morning, and I just got in a rush and forgot, but I emailed it to Autumn. I've got a chart by an agricultural professor who teaches in a university, and he came across some of my material and said, I think you might want to see this chart. And he researched who the corporations are that are actually the ones owning about, I think, 95 or 96 of the organic certifications. And I fell out of my chair when I saw this thing. It had Coca-Cola, Mars bar, Snickers bar, Pepsi, Cadbury, all the absolute crap processors. And what they do is they create these fake organic certifications, and many of them are also invested in commercial farming operations. Then they fund university researchers to do research on their organic food and their commercial food to compare them as though they're completely different sources of food. And they use that to create so-called research to tell people there's no difference between organic and commercial food so that they don't have to do the due diligence of farming organically, and they wipe out the whole organic movement. And I've had many people in my classes say, well, how come I keep seeing research and commercials saying there's no difference between organic and commercially farmed food? So I tell them, and so these kinds of concepts that you're talking about being deceived by the packaging, about being deceived by organic certifications, is a real problem that goes hand in hand with the corruption of our political system and our medical system, our healthcare system. So I'll ask you the question I was going to ask you below now. When you're choosing the ingredients for bars and for your restaurants, for your food, how are you, what are you doing to basically evaluate the quality of the food so you're not just getting something that may be organic but isn't?
Yeah, it is really important. They do also fund these fake research articles and Facebook posts and fake news type of stuff, showing that organic doesn't matter to try to get people not to buy it. Where to me, I tell people organic's just a starting point. Okay. So at least you're starting there, but then you have to know your brand, because there's just organic ingredients in bulk out of China, right? Can you really trust that? There's a lot of stuff out of Mexico. Now, all the companies that certify organic are not the government. They're private companies like QAI and Oregon Tilth, and they follow the NOP, the National Organic Program. And those standards are set by the government. And of course, the government, as you've touched on, is lobbied by corporations. So the standards are getting less and less.
Right.
And bastardized, and we can't trust them as much. So there's new certifications coming out. What we're doing currently is looking for as much biodynamic and regenerative agriculture that we can find. Currently, we're trying to work with a farm in Marietta called Pasture Bird. So we get all our chicken from them. They're a regenerative farm. To me, it's the gold standard that you could possibly get. Local, regenerative, family farm.
Yeah.
We know the owners. They eat at our restaurant. So there's a knowledge there. Can we do that with everything? No. We're trying to get them to do eggs for us. We use just our little restaurant. We have one restaurant now in Encinitas, 30 dozen eggs a day.
Wow. That's a lot
right?
of eggs.
I mean, what is Denny's using, right? You got to figure nationwide. So he can't grow that many eggs for us yet. So he's working on it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely steps, but what we try to know mostly are the people behind the brands.
Yes.
Because when I know the people,
yes,
then I know I trust them. Like, I have spoken to Autumn and her husband Chaz, and I know the depths that they've gone into to figure out the casing that's not wrapped in canola oil, but it's fermented versus what other companies do with their product. Those are the kind of questions that I ask. To me, the certification is not enough.
No,
it's just my starting point, and it isn't even always about that. We have let some small producers in, but I will ask them to show me their invoices. So I want to know, if you can't afford to be certified, I want to know that every ingredient you're claiming is organic on your package. I want to see invoices that say as much.
Mm-hmm.
So we just go that little extra mile, because I can't cook. I eat there every day. I don't like cooking. That's why I opened a restaurant.
Smart.
So
I don't like cooking either. So I have 2 wives.
I mean, I just can't do it.
I have 2 dishwashers too.
Yeah. So that's what we do. We try. We're not perfect, but I don't know that anyone's going to that depth, because chefs they're more concerned with flavor profiles and things like that, and margins. I'm more concerned with the absolute best that I can possibly get.
Yeah.
And then I just mark it up a normal restaurant margin, and I'm lucky that I'm in Encinitas and people care about that. It doesn't work everywhere.
No. No, it doesn't. And
sad, but.
Hi, everyone. I suspect Kris Buchanan's story of how she used organic food as medicine and all the real issues we're discussing regarding our food supply today is inspiring you to eat more organic foods. As we discuss, when you do the math with awareness of all the relevant factors included, such as satiation, less toxicity coming into your body, better health and less medical expenses, and the healing effects of investing in organic farming and supporting organic farmers, it's actually cheaper to eat organic. I've personally seen research showing that if your diet contains as little as 25% organic foods, it can have very beneficial healing effects. If you'd like to add real certified organic nutrition to your diet that is easy to use, fast, and nutritious, there's no better place to start than with Organifi. Organifi offers a wide variety of excellent, good-tasting, easy-to-prepare superfoods, protein powders, and drinks that my family, friends, and clients use regularly and love. You can taste and feel the nutrition right away, and I know you're going to love Organifi's great products. Go to Organifi.com, that's Organifi.com, and at checkout, use the code, all caps, capital C, capital H, capital E, capital K, 20 to get your 20% discount on any purchase. To get to know Drew Canole, the founder of Organifi, listen to my podcast with Drew, number 64, Drew Canole, UBU. I think you're going to love this guy as much as I do. Enjoy Organifi.
I'll give you an example of it not working everywhere. I've been a consultant to many professional sports teams. I don't know if I should mention the name of this team or not. I'll just be safe because I don't want to cause repercussions. But one of the top basketball teams, a buddy of mine, is spent 12 years as a trainer for them, and he's brought me in to consult for them with athletes having health problems and injuries that nobody can figure out. And when I was there the first time, I watched what they were eating, and it was just crap. I mean, piles of cheap pancakes and pouring Aunt Jemima's syrup. And I mean, like, these guys are just mainlining sugar on top of sugar and lots of gluten. And almost everybody in there had core control problems. You could see their guts were all distended. Their muscle definition was lost due to all the inflammation in their intestinal tract, small intestine. Abdominal walls not functioning. And so I was seeing there was a lot of problems with shoulders and knees, which are common results of core control issues. So I don't remember if it was the general manager, but I spoke to my buddy that is the trainer at the time, and then he brought one of the other higher-ups in, and I actually was successful in getting them to switch over not only to certified organic food, but hiring a chef could use my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, as a guideline. And they did that. And
wow,
that went on for about, I think, maybe a year and a half. But the athletes complained that they hated the food, and they threw temper tantrums if they couldn't get their garbage foods, their Count Chocula, their, sugar cereals, they wanted everything back to the poison that they were raised on, even though it was enhancing their health and performance and decreasing injuries. They had such a strong psychological addiction to those products and to all that sugar that ultimately they had to shut the whole program down, which was really sad for me. And, later we can get into it. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but these are real issues because another example is Penny and I were flying home. I was lecturing, I don't know, somewhere in Scandinavia or somewhere, and one of our flights got delayed, and we were landing at like some crazy ass time in Denver, and because of the delays, it was very late at night, and none of the places to eat in the airport were open. And there was these two kids that were maybe in their 20s that had just flown home from some long trip to China or whatever, and they were starving to death. And we were sitting in the bus, and Penny and I always carry our own food with us everywhere we go. And we were eating, and they were like looking at us like they wanted to jump us and eat our food. And I had a bag with like 3 or 4 organic carrots and some celery sticks. So I said, "Here, would you guys like some celery sticks and some carrots to hold you over?" Because it was like 2:00 in the morning. And they go, "Oh, no, we wouldn't eat that stuff. We're gonna find a Jack in the Box." I said, "You realize this is certified organic food, and you don't have to starve to death. This is clean, real food." "Oh no, we don't like that kind of food." So we got there, and of
vegetables.
course, yeah, the place they wanted to eat at was closed, and they still didn't want the food. I'm like, we've actually raised an entire culture that's been brainwashed and had their senses conditioned to the point that they actually find good food repelling, but don't realize that's why so many are on psychotropic drugs and chronic gut problems, all the kinds of things that trapped you.
Yeah. People ask me all the time, hey, you're an Olympian. Why don't you market towards athletes? And I'm like, because they haven't made the health switch yet. Yeah. And every high school, every college, every stadium sports team is either a Coke or a Pepsi team. Yeah. So you can't get in, and we don't have the money to be able to, beat Coke or Pepsi. But we did. We took our bars once down on the Chargers. The Chargers facility was right by one of my restaurants in Kearny Mesa for years, and their management ordered lunch almost every day, and we loved it. Right? We'd see the what was the guy's name? Not Santos, but him, the old owner of the Chargers.
I don't recall. I don't really. I've worked in professional. Yeah, I've worked in professional sports so much that I find that it's just like a shit show of spoiled children. So I I know too much about the insides of it.
Yeah. So we loved it, right? Because they were buying a bunch of big sandwiches, extra turkey, they get chips, they get drinks, they get all the stuff, the whole package. And their assistant would come up every day. The players weren't eating it, but the coaches were. And this was, this was a lot of food, and it was good business for us. They ended up moving, obviously. But they invited us down to like player day at their training facility once. And so we brought our little bars down there, and we were so excited. We're like, oh man, these pro athletes are going to see our stuff, and it's going to be so great. And they're going to stop eating, like all the junky bars. And they'd come up to our booth, and they're holding a big gulp, literally big gulps. And it just hit me then. I was like, I was that athlete. So I get their mentality. They're not there yet because they're 20. 25.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They're crushing it. They think they are.
Yes.
Well,
they are. They are crushing it in two ways. They're making a lot of money, but they're making a lot of pain for themselves in the future. They just don't realize it yet.
Yeah. They don't know it yet. I didn't know it. And it's worse now than it was when I was that age. I mean, GMOs weren't in our food until 96. And that's when, so I'd already been competing, since 85 or something without them. But then they entered our food system, and just as another layer of toxins in our body. Yeah. So that's why we don't talk to that core group of athletes, because they don't get it yet. So
yeah, it's a very interesting situation, and I honestly don't think I've ever worked with an elite athlete that didn't have serious imbalances in their nutrition that was directly related to the structural or physical pain that they were seeing with, or even emotional issues. And so it's always quite a journey to realize that it's a person's not going to switch until they are motivated to, usually because something's causing them pain or they're up against a wall. So it's change or die kind of mentality. And it's just hard, because one of the things that our culture is very confused about, due to the way university nutrition programs are directed, is people think that food is strictly energy, and so they shop for food like they shop for gasoline.
Yeah.
They don't have a concept as food as medicine, or food as information that the body uses to direct, heal, regenerate its biological systems. So they really just have a shopper's mentality for food, and it's really quite a problem. And as you probably know, I wrote my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. I think we published it in 2004, and people used to think I was nuts. They really thought,
I bet. I bet.
Food's just food, man. What are you so wound up about all this food stuff for? I say, oh, really? Then why are you laying on my treatment table right now?
It's the concept of it being so hard for people to understand that it's connected. Yeah. It's like literally connected, right? It's in your body.
Yeah.
So the fact that you think it's not connected doesn't make any sense to me. Like, and I'm not a doctor, right? But I have to go with common sense, because it just blows my mind. And you're right. We were taught food is fuel.
Yeah.
There were 8 McDonald's inside our Olympic Village in '96. 8
Yeah.
pop up little restaurants to feed the 10,000 athletes. There was also a cafeteria and all these other places, a barber, so you can spend your 3 weeks there at the Olympics and have a little village. But 8 McDonald's, and they were full of athletes in their most critical time of they trained their whole life for these 2 weeks.
Yes.
And then there they are eating Egg McMuffins, because it didn't matter. It was just calories in, calories out. That's what mattered. That's what we were taught.
That was one of the questions you probably saw that was coming later. But since we're on it, that's a real, to me, that's a real, both an ethical issue and a moral issue. And I really have a hard time with Olympic committees selling out like that. And it also is very pathological that with so many people working with Olympic athletes that have so-called degrees in nutrition, that this kind of stuff would even be allowed. And I'll tell you a couple of experiences I've had. I did a lot of work in Australia and New Zealand. I've worked in Olympic training centers and for Olympic committees all over the world. And they opened a brand new Olympic training center in New Zealand. And it was sponsored by Nestle. And I remember the first time I finished working out there, because they had quite a good weightlifting gym. And I was waiting for Penny to come pick me up. So I went and sat down in the cafe and said, I'll meet you in the cafe. And on the table, they had all these pamphlets put out by Nestle. And the first thing it said, it showed a picture of an athlete scoring a goal or something on the front. You open it up and it says tips on nutrition. And the first was like 10 tips. And the first one said, did you know sugar is an important part of a well-balanced diet?
Wow.
And I showed this to Penny. I said, can you believe this? I said,
Wow.
first of all, I've never met an athlete that knows what a well-balanced diet is. I've never met, honestly, of professional nutritionists, I've never met a nutritionist that could tell me what a well-balanced diet is. And if they think they can, I say, okay, that's interesting. What about the guy sitting beside you who's got completely different genes and maybe he's Hawaiian or he's an inland Aboriginal or a Mexican or whatever? How do you do that? And they look at me with a blank stare like, well, that doesn't really matter. So the point being is that all the way at the highest level, then I was working at the Olympic committee in Denmark at their Olympic training center. And 2 things shocked me. One, they had vending machines all over the place with cigarettes in them, and they had chocolate and soda pop and piles of crap. And I'm like, why have you guys even got this stuff in here? And the answer was, but the athletes love it. I said, don't you realize that you're supposed to be upholding the standards that we want athletes to achieve? And don't you realize that ultimately costs them longevity and can decrease their performance? And I went on and they said, well, the funny thing is that after me raising a lot of shit, because a lot of the people there knew who I was, I think a year later I came back and they'd removed the cigarettes and they'd removed a couple of the soda pop items. But one of the things that floored me was that I had several of their coaches in my classes, and they all kept asking, well, what do you think about this concept of athletes drinking chocolate milk as a post-workout recovery fuel? And I'm like, where on earth did you get that idea? And apparently some nutritionist had come there and convinced them that was what they were supposed to do. So they had all sorts of athletes drinking chocolate milk everywhere. And I'm not talking about even real chocolate milk. I'm talking about pasteurized commercial poisonous sugary shit.
Hershey's, yeah.
Yeah. And some of them were like arguing with me about this. And so I had to break it right down. And my point I'm driving at is, you're an Olympic athlete. I'm like, what do we do to, when you see Donald Trump celebrating a McDonald's meal with America's top university football players and marketing that in newspapers all over. It seems like we've just reached this level of incestuous foolishness driven by finances that it's actually sort of a greater message that the whole damn planet's in deep trouble. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Well, I mean, we're completely on the same page. It's a corporate takeover, and it's for money, right? So the Olympics, in particular, they're sponsored by the corporations. No tax dollars go to any U.S. athlete. We're one of the only countries in the world not funded by tax dollars. The only tax money that will go is if we get a bid, and the Olympics are in Atlanta or something, then you'll get some tax help to build all the facilities. So it's all corporate sponsors, and so they'll take anyone who's willing to give them money, and it goes to Home Depot, and there's some Kodak and those kind of companies too, but they're just full of factory farm, genetically modified, processed junk food because of money.
I agree with you, but it goes deeper than that, because the coaches and the therapists and the nutritionists working for these teams are allowing it, not intervening. And so the deeper question is, what does that say about our education systems?
That's exactly right. They are never taught food. We took our bar to a registered dietitian conference put on by the American Dietitians Association.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, awesome, we're going to get in with the dietitians. This is great. And I got to tell you, some of the younger ones that had started the program at the time, wow, oh, great, it's organic and it's all real food. It was nuts and seeds, raw honey, and Celtic sea salt. That was in our bar. That's it. And I'll never forget the lady who came up, flipped it over, didn't read the ingredients, right? Just read the nutrition panel, which is a big indicator if you don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, whoa, this has too many grams of fat. It's going to cause heart disease. And I was like, are you really still think that? Like, I'm so embarrassed for you. This is a Brazil nut. And then at that dietitian's conference, literally there was Monsanto had a booth with a little, wow. It was such a prop. It was a little like 5'4" Hawaiian farmer talking about his papaya. I mean, it was just embarrassing. And then Coke, Pepsi, Splenda, they were all there, and they had, when you buy a booth at those places, like $5,000, right?
Oh yeah,
for a little 10 by 10, and we have our little tablecloth and our little things up behind our booth. These guys had signs and booths that were probably $100,000 to make.
Oh yes,
and there was a whole breakdown of why artificial sweeteners were good for the body. With science and images and graphics that were just like, here we are in the back, right, with our little Brazil nut bar.
Yeah.
We don't stand a chance against that money. So they're brainwashed and they're uneducated. They don't understand what food is. General Mills paid $80 million when they bought the Lara bar.
Wow.
$80 million. Lara bar was doing $20 million at the time, and they bought them for $80 million. There's 3 ingredients in the Lara bar. Right at the time, like dates, almonds, cashews. And she was a bar who came along, like there was sort of the power bar, the chewy, part. Then Calif came on, and everyone was so excited, all the different flavors and textures. So still soy and a lot of not organic ingredients. And then Laura comes along. She was like kind of right at the right timing. She was the first one with just these real food ingredients, not organic at the time. And then she did very well. Lots of little colorful packages, and she kind of blew up. $20 million in 5 years she started selling.
That's a lot.
And General Mills, why are you going to spend $80 million? You can just make the Larry bar, right? But they don't know how to make, they can't make food. So they spend $80 million to buy the Lara bar. It just blew my mind. They don't know how to make food. They're just buying little brands, and they're scooping them all up, and then they degrade the ingredients. Kellogg's bought Kashi, a San Diego company, back when they were doing some whole food little granolas and cereals. And then they absolutely ruined the company. Now, because maybe this movement's becoming back, real food, organic stuff, Kashi has moved back to Cardiff.
Oh, and wow.
Yeah, they have a whole team, and they come in and eat at GOODONYA, and they're trying to bring back the legitimacy of the brand, and they're actually funding some transitional farms and trying to do some cool stuff. So I thought that was, they are still owned by Kellogg.
Hi, everybody. I'm sure you've all heard of the benefits of bone broth, but I bet you don't know about bone broth protein powder. I found an awesome bone broth protein powder with Paleo Valley, and I asked Autumn Smith if she'd explain why hers is so good from Paleo Valley.
Well, like you said, collagen is basically the fountain of youth, and most of us are not getting enough of it in our diet because maybe we don't have time to simmer bones on a regular basis. And so we created our powder to make getting the benefits of collagen for your joint health, for your gut health, for your mental health really, really simple. And we sourced it from 100% grass-fed and grass-finished bones. So it is a beef bone broth protein powder that you can literally put in everything. It's tasteless. I add it to my son's smoothies. I put it into his desserts. You can even put it in soup and get all the benefits of collagen without all of the time and energy and investment. So all you have to do to check it out is go to our website at paleovalley.com. That's PALEOVALLEY.com. And you can use the code CHECK15. That's lowercase CHEK 15 at checkout. And I hope your family loves it.
I know you'll love it. Keep your body healthy, keep your kids healthy, and let's make the world a better place with Paleo Valley. Enjoy. I told a story in one of my recent podcasts. I was talking to Leslie Manookian, which, if you get a chance to listen to that interview, that's potent. But I was talking to her about, have you ever read the book Beating the Food Giants by Paul A. Stitt?
No.
Oh, it's an old book, but it's loaded. And he worked for Quaker Oats. He was a scientist working for Quaker Oats. And he talks about how he was in their library and he found research where they had tested lab rats, feeding them Quaker's puffed oats, I believe it is, and comparing that to another normal food like standard oats. But in a nutshell, the research showed that it was essentially making the rats very sick, giving them diseases and so on and so forth. But because Quaker was doing all sorts of research, but they had buried this and nobody had ever talked about it. And it absolutely shocked him because his job was to research food and make good food. And so he went and met with the director of the company at the time of Quaker Oats and showed him what he'd found in the library. And the director's response was, oh, well, if they want to keep eating the crap, we'll keep making it for them. And that was his only response. So
and they don't care. I mean, and they do try to turn it on to the public and say, well, they're buying it. That is always their line.
Yeah.
But they spend a lot of money brainwashing people that those brands are okay and that you can trust them. You talk to the average person, you think you can go into a grocery store. They're shocked at the lack of testing or anything that goes into getting a food product on the shelf. I really could, minus being certified organic, I could almost put anything on my label and get it into a store. There's no one testing. There's been all kinds of, the first step in busting a brand for lying is another brand turning them in. And it's about a 5-year process with the FDA, lying for protein grams and stuff like that. There's been some brands that have, got busted, like Detour Bar got busted for lying for amount of protein. So it's happened, but it's not common. The people go in, they see a food, they see a brand, they think they can trust it. I mean, organic standards aren't the greatest, but there are independent companies going in and checking the processes. It's just that all the processes aren't perfect, but it is, like I said, a starting point.
I read that only 1% of all the foods and drugs on the market ever get evaluated by the FDA.
Yeah, and they're defunded all the time, and the companies that do the studies are the companies themselves, not the FDA. So they fund it to get this stuff passed. And stevia has a fun example. It was banned by the FDA forever because Coke and Pepsi were lobbying to keep it out. While in the wings, they were creating their own stevia brand. So the three of the biggest ones, right? So Coke and Cargill have one. Pepsi has Truvia. I think Coke and Cargill is Truvia. And then stevia in the raw, which you think sounds kind of cool. That's owned by the Cumberland Packaging Group, who makes Sweet and Low. Those companies were lobbying to keep it's not safe. It's this crazy, South American herb. We can't bring this in. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, we're good. We're good with it. Lifted their lobbying ban, and they launched products with stevia. They use chemical solvents. They don't use to extract it. They don't use organic stevia. They've patented their 69-step, chemical process to how to extract. So they patented that, when you can just steep it in water and then dry it with natural enzymes. So it's kind of a bummer, because to me, this herb used correctly is a great way to have a little sweet without all the damaging effects of sugar.
Yes.
But most people's introduction came from those 3 products, and it tastes horrible. And they use way too much, and it's just a chemical nightmare.
Yeah.
Mixed with dextrose from GMO sugar. So there's nothing about it that's good. But if you buy organic stevia, any organic stevia by definition has to be processed with water, not chemical solvents. So there's definitely some benefits to understanding what the good parts of organic are, and then what's the bullshit. You can still have organic junk food. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. When I was doing my research to write my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, and from my holistic lifestyle coaching program through the Institute, I can't remember what year it was, but I read the entire USDA organic guidelines, and it took a long time to get through it. It was huge. Have you ever seen that damn thing?
Not in person, no.
Oh,
just online,
It was, it was like reading a legal document from a major corporation doing a transfer of ownership or something. It was, I don't know. It probably took me about 2 or 3 months to get through it. And it was just thousands. I would imagine at the time I'm guessing it was when you buy paper in bulk and it comes in the packages,
the ream of paper.
Paper. Yeah. It was as big as a ream of paper. And it was just,
no normal person can get through that.
And it was loaded with, and I'm glad I did, because it was loaded with little booby traps. For example, at the time, you could call something certified organic if it had at least 70% organic ingredients. So it could have up to 30% non-organic ingredients. Yeah. I'm like looking at this. So how much poison does it take before something's not organic? I mean, it's just like, it's such a major deception, and it's just, well, we don't need to harp on that. We both know the deal, but so one of the questions I'd like to ask you, having studied holistic nutrition, are you a mother?
No, just my 40 kids in the restaurant.
Okay, good.
They took away all my maternal instinct when I started having employees.
Yeah, well,
I was like, no more.
my students not only took away but require my paternal instinct, but Great Spirit has other plans sometimes. So I can say I'm the happy father of 3. I have a 40-year-old son, and I have a 4-year-old, and I have a 11-month-old.
Wow, that's something.
I had a surprise at 54 and another one, 11 months ago. Well, 11 months plus 9 months, but it's okay. It keeps me young, because like I'll be 59 in August. So I've been at it for a while. I've been doing this work for 36 years. So I've had a lot of time to watch all the silliness, But my question is the reason I asked if you were a mother, I'm curious, as someone who's spent this much time looking into this, knows all the things you're talking about, what do you think the impact is on humanity and the children of the world? Where do you think this, if you look in the crystal ball and say, okay, what are we going to get 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now? Where's the end game on all this from your perspective?
I mean, I feel like what you said earlier, the only way out of it is for the public to become educated themselves. All right. Because they're saying now kids born today won't outlive their parents. It's the first time in human evolution. So this means we've hit a point right now. We're going backwards. Like that one statement is so staggering.
It is. I never heard that before.
It's pretty crazy, right? And you've heard like half the population will have diabetes. There's going to be more plastic in the ocean than fish in 20 years. We've really kind of, I think, hit the bottom. I don't really think food could get any worse than it is.
No.
The only way out of this is education. And so I feel without it, it's just going to continue to be disease, depression, all the stuff that happens in our gut that's leading to all this, pandemic of depression and anxiety. And the moms, from what we see, we live in a bubble in Encinitas. I mean, we're really a family restaurant. I didn't know if we'd be some ultra hit place when I opened this and who would really come, but who has come to support us, our moms. So I do feel like the work that we are doing and that you've been doing has got to make a difference, and then it's got to catch on. We don't really have a choice for it not to. And at least there's a ton of brands and companies that are trying to do the right thing.
Right.
It's the only way out of it.
Yeah, it's a predicament. It can be a bit devastating because if you look at how profitable this is to the medical establishments and the drug companies. They're very invested in all this, and there's lots and lots and lots of evidence of that. I did research for a book I wrote for my students. I didn't. We never got around to making it public. It's called Under the Veil of Deception: What Uncle Sam Isn't Telling You About Organic Food and Organic Farming. And I found so much information that just boggled my mind. And one of the things I was reading research that was presented in the journal The Ecologist, which is really quite a good journal. I haven't read it in a while, but they really investigate companies, and they investigated several big companies like Coca-Cola. They invested companies that manufacture alcohol. They invested R.J. Reynolds in cigarettes, producing factories and corporations. And what they found was quite interesting, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this. They tracked the money, so they looked where each of the board of directors and the company itself had made its investments. And guess what they found across the board in all these companies? The companies had always invested in the disease, alcoholism, cigarette addiction, and in drugs and programs to get them off. So what they were doing is they were creating the dysfunction and then making money off the medical and the drug rehab and the antidote. So they would create a problem and sell the solution, create a problem. And they showed that right down the line that this whole game was very, very well calibrated, well thought out, and very strategically done. And it really blew the lid off a lot of this stuff. And I was very proud of The Ecologist for publishing that. And I think I even wrote him and thanked him for that. But it shows how sick our culture is at a fundamental level with regard to, this is why I said earlier, we really got to look at the morals and ethics behind what's going on with the Olympics, because it's really the tip of a much bigger iceberg that extends itself into politics, into banking, into medicine, into vaccination. And the list is very, very long, right? So when you look at this thing, then you start looking at some of the statistics. I've watched a number of documentaries, and Linda Manukian that I just interviewed produced the documentary The Greater Good, which is an award-winning documentary on the dangers of vaccinations. And when you look at the statistics of how much autism has been tracked to vaccinations and all the vaccinations that they're trying to force on people, the statistics show that within as little as 10 years, the percentage of the population of children that will be autistic is shockingly high. I think by 2020, they say, 2030, they say we could have as many as 30% of the population autistic. And that the cost of that is going to be many, many, many billions of dollars a year just to they say they're going to have to change traffic systems, how people navigate, how people shop, everything.
All so they can make money selling some drugs.
Yeah.
It's so criminal. We put on the movie Vaxxed at a local theater.
Great.
And we sponsored it. We got Jimbo's, we got Krista from The Whole Journey. I think I got Sean out there. I said, hey, help me promote this. Let's sell some tickets. Krista put a panel together. We were on the side of not getting vaccinated. Yeah. But we wanted to, kind of promote, like, let's have some discussion around this topic. And man, I got to tell you, people came out like, I will never eat at your restaurant again. And I can't believe you're doing this and promoting this. And I was like, oh, hey, first of all, I felt like I could give a shit if you eat at my restaurant again, right? I'm
Right.
too old now to care
Yeah.
about you. Like but I was like, hey, what is the problem with just learning?
Yes.
I don't get that. Like, I don't even have kids. Okay. But this topic is interesting to me because of all the stuff we're talking about, corporations, the money, it's politics. It's fascinating to
and
me.
Human rights and concern for life.
Yeah. And I have nephews and nieces. I have friends that are having kids. So why don't we just watch it and then discuss it?
Right.
You know, if I could do anything that would even spread out this schedule of, what is it, 40 something now with all the doses that they get?
42 by, I think, age 2, but in some places as much as 70 different vaccinations. I won't go into my story with what happened to me and Angie in the hospital with the kids, but I'll tell you this, we had to fight like hell. And it was so bad, they called the social services and had me taken out of the room and investigated me for child abuse and wife abuse, and were considering taking our child away. And that was in Scripps Hospital in Encinitas, of all places.
Yeah, and we live in this free country. You know, it's a sham.
You know, a buddy of mine
it's a sham.
A buddy of mine's an Olympic athlete, Olympic weightlifter and medalist and, stud athlete from Russia. But he said to me, he says, Paul, you guys in the States just think you're free. You're really not free at all. He said, here, we're free. You guys think we're not free, and you think you're free. But we know that we're more free than you, because when we come to your country and see how you guys live, you're brainwashed and controlled at every move. You've got security cameras everywhere. He said, you don't have any idea how bad you guys have, how big of a trap you've fallen into. So it's really interesting to hear that from a Russian, of all people.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff. I mean, our democracy, it's like, here's your 2 choices. Good luck. It's like you said, we vote every day with our dollar. People don't understand the connection between corporations and politics and food and everything. And you just follow the money.
Yeah,
just follow the money and you find it.
It's shocking to me how in a culture that prides itself on modernity, on invention, on being leaders, you know, the people that founded our country and came here were obviously really what's a good way to put it? They were pioneering, right? They had to come here in wagon trains and fight their way through the Indian territory. So they were real go get 'em, ass kicker people and about making stuff happen. But when you look at issues like vaccination, circumcision, how do you feed your children, religion, people absolutely will not look at anything that does not conform to their viewpoint, even when they don't realize their viewpoint is not well-founded. And it's really an issue of lower levels of consciousness that aren't open-minded. And it's sad to me because, see, I only did ninth to the 9th grade, and I left school. I became a father, and my observation was school is boring as hell to me. I'm being raised on a farm. I knew how to weld, how to work on things. I could go get a job, and I did. I worked in logging camps. I just couldn't see the point of staying in school to study stuff that just bored the hell out of me. And even as a young guy, I was already making as much money as some of the teachers were, working as a mechanic or doing various jobs. So I was like, why would I want to go to school all these years when these guys don't have any evidence that it's done anything for them?
Right.
So I have always been just kind of dumbfounded at how our education system is not designed to teach people how to think. It's designed to teach them what to think. And so people generally don't really learn how important it is to look at both sides of an argument and look for other ways or concepts that can be used. So we've almost got this education system that isn't educating people, paradoxically. Hello, everybody.
All of us at the Czech Institute are excited about releasing our new Golf Performance Specialist online training program, and we're happy to be able to offer you a chance to pre-order the course and get a special $100 first access discount, which is available right now. I developed the Golf Performance Specialist program myself because there was no program in the world that offered a holistic, integrated approach to assessing the golf athlete and getting them balanced, healthy, and performing better. Through my career as a rehabilitation and performance specialist, I've worked with a long string of golfers that were injured and suffering performance plateaus that weren't getting results until I applied the integrated holistic approach I share in the Golf Performance Specialist program, which teaches you how to customize your programs to each individual's needs. Most of them, caught in the traditional mindset of trying to adjust swing faults by modifying their stance or buying new golf clubs, only spent thousands of dollars that didn't help their game. But after applying the principles and practices I teach in this program, came to fully realize that it's the golf athlete that plays the game, not the club. Not only does having this specialized training give you the skills to work with some of the most commonly injured athletes and enthusiasts, it gives you access to millions of people that have the finances to afford your expertise. Regardless if you're a physician treating sports injuries, a physical therapist, chiropractor, osteopath, massage therapist, conditioning specialist, or a player that wants to optimize performance, this course teaches you key assessments and how to address common muscle imbalance syndromes, identify and activate inhibited muscles, optimize core function, and clearly shows you how to progress the player through the essential stages of flexibility, stability, strength, and power development. To pre-order your e-learning course now and receive a special $100 off first access discount, go to czekinstitute.com/GPS online. That's czekinstitute.com/GPS online. I know you're going to enjoy this course. It's very powerful, very holistic, and it works extremely well.
Yeah, I think there's, and even the new sort of, I mean, when I was a kid, if we needed information, we had to drive downtown to San Diego and go to the library, right?
Yeah.
Look in the card catalog. You had to work really hard for it.
Yes, me
and
too.
Nowadays it's on it, right? So I think we learned in how to, I grew up kind of poor and got myself a scholarship, and I was all about sports. It wasn't about learning for me at that time. But I left home when I was 17, and you had to figure stuff out on your own.
Yes.
Back then we didn't have our parents kind of doing those kind of things for us.
No.
Nowadays, my staff, my younger staff and the younger high school kid ones, I have more hope in them. But the 20, 30-year-olds, there's some problem solving skills that they literally didn't develop in their brain.
Yes.
They have all the information here, but they're so lazy. I'm like, why are you asking me that question?
Right.
What do you mean? Where's the broom? Where do you think the broom is? On table 7? It's in the back by the dishwasher where
Right.
brooms belong.
Yes.
But they're so lazy. They just don't try to figure things. I never went to a boss of a restaurant I worked at and asked them a question. I was going to figure that out on my own. I didn't want to. I don't know. I just was maybe scared of them or something. But
Well, I think
I
you
don't know what
probably,
it was.
the boss is supposed to be dealing with the big problems that bosses are supposed to deal with, not where the broom is. But yes, I think any big or decent sized business owners, we have branches all over the world, and at times we've probably had 50 or 60 people working for us, and finding people that are constructive thinkers that will work on their own, that don't need to be handheld and guided, has been a major challenge. Fortunately, now we have a good team, but it took us, 25 years to find them.
Yeah. But have you seen a decline? I mean, or am I just turning into my parents where I think all the young kids are crazy?
I've
I don't
seen
know.
it clear as a bell. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely that's why I was saying, what do you think the crystal ball is if we keep this going? Cheers, by the way. I'm going to have some vaporized herbs and clean tobaccos, and everyone's going to ask what it is. So it's Grandfather's Spirit Sun Pipe Mix. There you go.
All right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's rad.
My body hates smoking anything, but I use a vaporizer, which just pulls the water vapor out of the plant. It looks like smoke, but there's no smoke in there. There's no fire. But it does, you can vaporize teas, and it does to you exactly what the tea would do if you drank it, but it happens in about 3 seconds instead of waiting.
Yeah. Plus, I hate tea. I don't know why.
Just the uniqueness of you.
Yeah, it hurts my stomach. Okay, doggies. That was pretty good. We went a while without a bark.
Yeah, not bad. Well, I'd love to hear some of the foundation principles you learned when studying holistic nutrition and how they ultimately helped you heal and become the basis of what you offer. So, for example, in the Czech Institute, I teach 6 foundation principles: nutrition, hydration, sleep, which are the feminine, yin; breathing, thinking, and movement are the masculine, yang. So I show how these principles, nutrition, hydration, sleep, are essentially oriented toward regenerative processes, and breathing, thinking, and movement are typically, in most people, more catabolic or destructive. And because your breathing mirrors your thinking, if your thinking's too negative or too fear-based and your movement is too little or too much, you're going to be catabolic either way. So if your nutrition, hydration, and sleep aren't adequate to counterbalance that, then you're going to be a patient somewhere. So that I'm sort of setting the frame. What were some of the principles that were foundational to your studies and that you now think are important in your life?
Well, I would say that I went to the Natural Healing Institute in Encinitas. And the first question the owner of the school asked us was, what diet's the best? So everyone's raising their hand, vegan, this or that. And it was a trick question, of course. No one diet's going to be good for everybody. So that principle alone helped me realize that, and I was already studying ingredients. Dogmatic diets didn't jive with me.
Right.
So that principle alone and kind of falling in with Michael Pollan and his work really guided me. The school then went on to teach different philosophies. So if you were going to be a nutritional counselor and someone came in and said, I want to be a vegan, or I want to be an Ayurvedic, or follow whatever, it taught you all the different sort of diets and lifestyles.
Right.
Was it the best school? I don't know. Probably not. It taught us a lot of individual vitamins and minerals, the backgrounds of what those do in the body, and the need for them. And so then, figuring out how to get them out of real food became a founding principle for me. But that was really it. Your stuff that you do is a whole nother level of thinking and consciousness and tying it all together. This was very basic holistic nutrition. So I think how I've kind of developed my whole philosophy has been from, people that have read the books that I've read and following people like you and Sean and Krista Recchio and Laird Keith. And I mean, I can, 1,000 books that I've read.
Right.
Has just formed my individual opinions, but I don't try to say this is the way you should eat. I try to figure out, how is this ingredient grown? What do they process it with, if anything? And how do they put it together? Like I've made my bar like Chaz at Paleo Valley figured out when they were making his beef sticks.
Yes.
Is that they were lubing my machine with canola oil. And they're like, well, it's organic. We're an organic facility. And I was like, I don't want any part of my bar touching canola oil.
No.
So I had to get him to change to coconut oil. I mean, there's so much stuff that goes on in food manufacturing. It's so crazy. So I look at all of that. And to me, it's figuring out what ingredients work for your body. And I'm dogmatic about not following a dogmatic diet, 'cause it's a wrong way to think about food.
It is.
We get yelled at every day by vegans. I've been yelled at by vegans for 20 years now. And I'm kind of over it, And I'm like, if you want to go to a vegan restaurant down the street, they're down there. I'm not claiming to be vegan. Why are you in here yelling at me for being vegan? Go to the vegan fast food place that is full of GMOs.
Yeah.
It's just wrong. It's just wrong on so many levels. So I love that people can come to our restaurant and you can be a teenage girl who just went vegan. You can be a dad who wants a burger. You can be a kid who wants a pizza. You can be a wife who wants a salad. And everyone can be happy without going to some weird place and getting jackfruit tacos and stuff that people don't understand. So I want to kind of create normal, approachable food with the most thought about ingredients and even the oils we cook in and all of that stuff. So that's just my philosophy.
I think that's a great foundation. By chance, have you listened to my series titled The Honest Vegetarian?
No.
Ah,
Oh,
oh, Kris.
I mean,
If you want a thorough education on diets and the misgivings of vegetarianism and veganism, and all the diets, really, from paleo to nose to tail eating, my senior instructor, Matthew Walden, who's a naturopath and an osteopathic physician and a genius, and I dissect this whole thing physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It's a 5-part series. Part 1 is on my podcast, and then on our social media site where it's kind of our Czech Flicks, which we launched, I think, January. The other parts are in the audio section, and it's probably the most thorough expose of diet I've seen anywhere in the world, and it is thorough. So I think you'll find it mind-blowing and fascinating because we get deep into even the metaphysics of food and the energetics and the information in food and things like sonic geometry and things that most people don't even think about. One of the things I wanted to mention about canola oil is one of the things that really pissed me off is when Whole Foods started, they didn't have canola oil and everything. And all of a sudden, almost like overnight, every single damn thing in that store was in canola oil. And because Penny and I spent most of 25 years traveling the world in airplanes, lecturing all over the world and teaching all over the world. And, we have a branch of our business that covers the South Pacific. I've done lots and lots of work down there. We lecture all through Europe and Scandinavia. I've lectured everywhere, Russia, all over the place. So having to live out of a suitcase, you're always hunting for real food. And when Whole Foods started ruining their foods, I was just so irritated because there was nothing I could eat in there anymore.
Yeah.
And I researched canola oil, and a lot of people don't know that it's actually rapeseed oil. And rapeseed oil is not a food crop. It's an industrial crop, so it's not protected by food laws.
Yeah.
And it's not good for the human body whatsoever. And it's pawned off as a healthy food all over the place. It's cheap crap.
Yeah. It's often blended with soy, and it is probably in 99% of the restaurants in the world. You can have a nice piece of fish, wild fish maybe, but it's going to be, pan fried in canola soy oil blends. They're not doing grass-fed butter and ghee and coconut oil back there. They're just, it's a real problem. It's a real problem. And the fact that there's organic canola oil speaks to the problem of the organic standards, right? It's an oxymoron. There should be no such thing as organic canola oil. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. That's like organic motor oil or something,
Yeah, it's just stupid. So if people can take those inflammatory oils out of their diet, it's one reason when you eat at restaurants, you feel so heavy and bloated and inflamed basically afterwards.
And that's what the whole metabolic syndrome is really a chronic global inflammatory issue. And then when you look at all the Roundup that's been put into the food system, and the fact that Roundup seriously disrupts the microorganism population of our gut, our microbiome.
Yeah.
One of the things that astounded me, do you remember when C. Everett Koop was the Surgeon General for the United States?
Mm-hmm.
He got on television and he said, do you realize that I think he said 8 or 9 of the top 10 killers of Americans are all diet and lifestyle related, and that if you paid more attention to your diet and your lifestyle, that a lot of these problems would not exist, and they fired him the next day.
Oh my God. What year was that about? That's amazing.
I think it was in the Reagan administration.
Wow.
But they fired him. And then when we were having all this problem with too many young people, females getting pregnant, Janet Reno, who became the Surgeon General, suggested that children explore masturbation as opposed to sexual interaction with other people to minimize unnecessary or unwanted children or births that were problematic. And they fired her the next day for that because the Christians got crazy about it and had her removed. So it's actually functionally, it's illegal to tell people the truth in politics.
Yeah. Well, look now, have you heard one thing during COVID about keeping your immune system strong.
No, I've seen everything about how to destroy yourself.
I mean, are we going to, even flu season, they tell you to take vitamin C or something, they're not even talking about it once. And it's so embarrassing. I mean, what I don't know is, we could say, oh, the evil corporation. These corporations are people. They are humans. They're sitting around making these decisions. And how can they do it? I just don't understand at a fundamental level how they can sleep at night. When I watched that movie, Sweet Misery, it was like the Matrix, right? You want the red pill or you want the blue pill? Because as soon as you have to make a decision. You can't unknow it.
Right.
So my family or, my friends, I'm like, I'll tell you what I've learned, but you better be ready to make a choice.
Right.
Because you'll know that you could never even consider, no matter how starving you were, going to McDonald's, because it's actually not food.
No, it isn't.
So you would never even do it.
Right.
And that's inconvenient when you're going in between 6 soccer games, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to plan in advance and get your kids trained on eating real food. And it's not a consideration. It's just not a consideration. I just don't get how people just don't want to know. They don't want to talk about it, talk about religion, food. When I first learned all this stuff, I was a nightmare, right? You couldn't go out to dinner. I'm like, GMO, you can't go out to dinner with me. I mean, I just was so passionate. I was like, what are you doing? I go to my friends' cupboards. I'm like, no. And I was too much. I realized.
Yeah.
So I had to tone it down, and then I had to wait. It's been 10 years now. Now they come to me, and now they ask for help. And that's how I learned to do it. Just sort of put it out there, what I know, and come to me when you need it. I'm happy to help. But I don't force it on anyone anymore.
No, I tell all my students that there's nothing more irritating than a fanatic.
Yeah.
And the example I give them is, have you ever been walking down the street and had someone shouting the Bible on a megaphone and telling you you're going to burn in hell? And how does that make you feel? Do you want to hang out with that? Do you feel like your space is being infringed on? It's an infringement of your personal space. And this is what's happening with vaccination, for example. And interestingly enough, a friend of mine who's very intelligent told me they saw an interview with a doctor that's a friend of Bill Gates's personal physician, and confided to him that he does not vaccinate his own children. And I'm like, well, there you go. So this is all about money and control and manipulation. And, the point that I think is important for the listeners to realize is that we're actually, as you said, at a tipping point. And if we don't all get together and ask serious questions like, what is the future of our nation and our planet if our children are all sick before they're even working adults, before they're consciously able to contribute? What's the future if our children keep getting brainwashed into ideas programmed into their minds by corporations and they can't think for themselves? What's going to happen if we have an environmental disaster and there's no seeds left and there's nobody that knows how to farm? When you start asking these questions, people just look at you with a blank stare and they think that food's just going to magically pop up in supermarkets for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
I've shared this on the podcast, but I think it's relevant here. The famous British chef, Jamie Oliver? Mm-hmm. Yeah. In one of the documentaries I saw featuring him, he made a shocking point. He said, I travel all over England and all over the world doing presentations for schools, and I have flashcards. And he said, I've mixed the corporate symbols with common fruits, vegetables, and farm animals. And he said, 50% of children do not recognize common fruits, vegetables, and farm animals, but they, on average, get 100% of corporate symbols right.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
That to me is, that should be a national emergency. If you want to use the military for something intelligent, then they should be rehabilitating the soils, and we should be rebuilding education programs, because the infrastructure of our planet at this point is in serious, serious peril, and everybody's only worried about their next iPhone, how cool their purse is, what kind of car they drive. And it's a real dangerous, dangerous thing.
It is well known in natural medicine that as much as 90% of diseases human beings suffer begin in the gut, and poor digestion, elimination, metabolism, and assimilation are usually reliable indicators that your body is either unable to digest what you're eating or that your body is enzyme depleted. This was certainly part of the problem for Kris Buchanan and something she had to address in her healing process. Bioptimizer's products are at the cutting edge of health science and ideal for supporting your digestion, metabolism, assimilation, and elimination. That means you get more from your food, your supplements, you heal faster, and perform better. Bioptimizer's enzymes also aid recovery from training, and their Capex enzymes also stimulate your metabolism naturally, which is very helpful if you're tired, overweight, out of shape, or toxic. Living 4D listeners save 10% on any order using the code PAUL10. That's capital P, lowercase AUL 10, just like you'd write PAUL10 on checkout. Go to bioptimizers.com, that's bioptimizers.com, and check out their amazing product line. If you listen to my podcast number 55, Wade Lightheart, you can meet the co-founder of Bioptimizers, learn a lot about enzymes, and much more. He's an amazing man. Enjoy Bioptimizers.
One of the things I notice, and don't take this in the wrong way, is, I've eaten at your restaurant a number of times. Both of my wives love it. My kids love going there. And how old is the Encinitas restaurant?
It's five in a couple days.
Oh, okay. Because when you said you'd been around for 19 years, I was going to go, wow. I thought maybe the Encinitas one was the original one because it still looks brand new to me.
Yeah, 5 years now. I think I don't know what day it is, but any day now we turn 5.
Okay, cool. Well, happy 5.
Yeah, thank you.
I personally need a fair bit of fat in my diet. The one challenge I have when I go there is I can't find dishes with enough dark meat or the kind of fats that satiate me. So usually what I have to do is order up 2 or 3 sides of breakfast sausage to get my fat. So it's funny that you're telling me that you're not really into the vegan thing, because my initial impulse looking at the menu and seeing how lean it was is that maybe there's a sort of a vegan trend here. I'm just curious, what is your fat philosophy in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, we have a very simple food menu. Mm-hmm. I will say that, we've been criticized for not being spicy enough or saucy enough and that kind of stuff. It is pretty basic, simple food. We do cook in grass-fed butter that we get from Spring Hill Dairy.
Oh, good.
We get their ghee. So you're getting a lot of the fat in anything that's cooked.
Okay.
We do have a roasted chicken. Now you might not have had that from Pasture Bird. It's a half chicken.
Yeah.
So you have your dark meat on there, but we can't do bacon in our oven. So we don't have we don't have an open flame. So that's kind of a bummer. We do have the breakfast sausage. We do have avocado on probably 80% of our menu.
I do eat a lot of avocado there. I usually get like a double or triple side of avocado.
Yeah,
because
we have also cashew. We make our own cashew milk, and then we take all that pulp and we make our vegan cheese for the vegans. Mm-hmm. So that's like a blend of the pulp, avocado, and olive oil.
Okay,
so that's a really good fatty. And we've got a bunch of nuts and seeds. When I read your question, I was like, man, what else can we do for fats?
Well,
but dark meat is definitely a weakness. We don't have a lot of pork and dark meat. For sure.
I have food intolerances to all nuts, grains, and seeds. I'm genetically allergic to beef. I can't eat dairy except butter. So unfortunately, my window is pretty much what I call a caveman diet. I can eat fish. I can eat birds. I can't eat red meat. It causes problems for me. So I kind of have to eat things like salmon or the dark meat of chicken or things like that. Otherwise, I just feel starving no matter how full I get,
Yeah, we have, we started out as a breakfast and lunch sort of scrambles and then salads, sandwiches, wraps. That was what GOODONYA was forever. And when we came to Encinitas, we realized that people wanted us open for dinner. And I was like, oh, great. So now we decided to open for dinner. I was already open 7 days a week, which I wasn't used to. And now we're open 6:30 in the morning till 9 at night, 7 days a week.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
It's hell on earth. It really is. And so then when we opened for dinner, we had to completely change the decor, the lighting, the music, and the menu. And we didn't really have the kitchen for it.
Right.
We have remodeled just again during COVID. We took some time because it was slower to invest in our kitchen and our ovens and hire a chef. Really, at our restaurant, we didn't have people I could trust to take a good piece of fish, to be honest,
Right.
and not mess it up, or a steak. So we're hoping to add more of that kind of stuff to dinner as we go along. But man, we grew so fast. Every day was just about, it was just like a triage of trying to deal with the orders and it was a good problem, right? Just coming in, and you can have 2 people at a table and your kitchen ticket will be 2 feet long with the modifiers.
Right.
And so people are like, why the hell does it take so long? And I'm like, well, I'm not going off on you, but it takes so long because of you.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not you, or it's a guy, it's a person sitting next to you, and that's who we cater to. And so when it's like no cheese, extra avocado, cooking ghee, add spinach, no turkey, sub chicken, it's like, what the hell am I making?
Yeah,
and we allow all that.
Very specialized at that point.
Yeah, and the normal dude coming in just wanting a chicken burrito is like, what the hell, But
yeah,
it is what it is, and people have to wait, and it's a first world problem. I tell them, if you're going to complain about waiting 20 minutes, 30 minutes for your meal on the 101 for organic food, then you have bigger problems.
Yes.
So go Yelp about it, and I'm not even going to deal with you.
The thing that I personally love about your restaurant is that I'm very, very sensitive. I'm energetically sensitive. I can read energy. I can do a lot of things that most people can't do because they haven't spent years of time developing it. But the one thing I love about your restaurant is the food is very clean. I don't feel burdened by anything. Everything I eat feels nutritious. I can leave there feeling like I had a food that fits my values. I don't feel like, okay, I'm having to sacrifice because there's nothing else to eat. I can go there and eat real food. And I think most people, even if it's unconscious, can feel the difference in their body when they're eating real food. And so I think their instincts are attracting them to your restaurant.
Thanks for saying that. I think when I decided to create the menu, I didn't want, Chris Recchio to walk in. I didn't want Sean to walk in and then ask me, what should I get? And I'd be like, well, don't get the tuna, but get this. I didn't want to have any of those discussions. I wanted to be proud of every single thing that was on there, right? So we make our own mayonnaise with avocado oil. We use, American tuna. They're all single pole caught. They test for mercury, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to be proud of everything because these were my friends that I learned from that lived in the community that were naturopathic doctors and nutritionists. And I wanted to be legit and to be proud of it. And I had learned, and like I said, it was the matrix. I couldn't do anything different. I didn't know if it would work. When I opened Encinitas, I still had my original store that opened in 2001 in Kearney Mesa. And over the years, we had brought Kearney Mesa along, and then that was just running itself. And I didn't want to do any more restaurants. The Encinitas location used to be my office for our products. But people kept coming in going, hey, when are you opening? And I'm like, no, we're not opening any more restaurants. They're a shit show. I'm tired of them. Get out.
It's a lot of work.
It's too much work. You have no idea.
Oh, yes, I do. My mother was a head waitress for a long time, and I used to hear all about it. Fortunately, she ate at what was ranked as the #1 high-end restaurant in British Columbia my father built the restaurant, and he built it with no nails. He built it all with, he carved all the beams with his chainsaw, and he did all the wooden pegs. I forgot the name of that style, but it was extremely beautiful. And my dad did all the stained glass windows himself, and they brought only in all high-end local farmed everything from locally, from the hunters, the venison, everything was just, I mean, of course,
that's amazing.
This is when I was, a kid. So a restaurant like that now would be probably almost impossible because of the price of the food at a place like that. It'd probably be $100 a meal. But my point is, I know from my mother being a waitress for probably 20 years, all the ins and outs and the stories and the things that drove her nuts. And so, I understand. And I know what I'm like when I go to a restaurant, because when I go to most restaurants, I have to say, don't put that in there. Don't put that in there. Cook this way. Don't microwave anything that I'm going to eat. And
exactly.
Penny can tell you, I've had to get up and walk into the kitchen because they keep ruining eggs or destroying the food. And I'm like, I've actually had to go in the back and show people how to cook an egg before.
That's awesome.
And they ruin coffee. That's another thing. You guys make great espresso, so congratulations on that. Fortunately,
yeah, we love our coffee. We use a local roaster. They use all female co-ops that we buy the beans from. So, coffee is a huge commodity, second highest traded commodity in the world behind petroleum. So there's a lot of bad stuff that goes with coffee, and even organic coffee is just monocrop sometimes.
Yes.
Of coffee. So you want to have it in a diverse, agriculture and small farms, and where they're, rotating crops and growing in the shade, not bird friendly and blah, 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 all this stuff. But it makes a big difference.
Well, interestingly, research shows that during any depression, there's only 3 things that don't drop in sales volume: coffee, white sugar, and cigarettes.
Wow.
Those things never, no matter how poor people get, they will still buy coffee, sugar, and cigarettes.
That's their addictions right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm aware that you created your own hydrate drink. I looked at your website this morning. I've seen it. Autumn told me about your products. And I've done a lot of research into this area myself. I forgot this guy's name. It's been so many years, but our education director had a boyfriend, and his master's thesis was on sports drinks. And I think it was done at Colorado State. And he chose to investigate them because I think he was getting his degree in exercise science, but he, for whatever reason, had come to the conclusion that none of them were really very effective. So he did a proper master's thesis, which I have somewhere in my library, comparing all the top sports drinks from Gatorade to, there was like 11 of them that he investigated. And what he did is he had people do VO2 max tests and all sorts of stuff. And he compared the performance objectively using these different drinks. But guess what he compared them against?
What?
Water. So each 8-ounce serving of water had a level teaspoon of honey in it. And so he compared them just against water and water and honey outperformed every one of them across the board. And so I found that very interesting. So I'm wondering, what do you feel are the most important things everyone should know about hydration in general and electrolyte drinks? Because many athletes, this is another issue I want your opinion on. Many athletes use electrolyte drinks that are jacked up with all sorts of stuff, but they're doing purely anaerobic stuff like lifting weights or very short-term activities. And I've seen that in the gyms, people are just piling down all sorts of Gatorade and all these sugar drinks, and they're actually convinced that they need an electrolyte drink when they're doing these short-term anaerobic activities. But most people don't need electrolyte drinks unless they're doing more endurance athletics. That's just my own opinion. I'm just curious, what have you learned about hydration, and where's your stance on electrolyte drinks from some of these perspectives?
Well, I mean, as someone who used these tools as part of their career, right? So not your average consumer. We drank Gatorade and Powerade because that's what was given to us for free.
Right.
Most Powerade, actually. It's slightly worse if you're going to do an ingredient comparison. 40 grams of sugar in a 20-ounce bottle, petroleum-based food colorings, artificial sweeteners. It's literally almost everything wrong with our food system in one bottle. GMOs.
That's a good way to sum it up.
Yeah, it's so shocking. And for me, they were marketed as not only healthy to us, but needed. Have this in your bag, because as soon as you're thirsty, your performance is down 50%. Don't even let yourself get thirsty. We're like, oh crap, 50%. We don't want to go down 50%. I mean, they put the fear of God in you. So we're chugging the 32-ounce bottles all day long, trying to stay hydrated. I had diarrhea for probably 12 years because I was putting 200 grams of sugar into my body.
Wow.
And I just thought it was nerves or getting ready for the game or whatever, what have you. I didn't know any different. I was 20. So I have a really big, just passion for those sports drinks in particular, because they damage my health. They literally damage my health. I should sue them. I don't know if you can do that, but I feel really strongly about that. Not one person should ever consume a sip of that stuff. Now, I don't know if you're a dying football player in the middle of the Florida sun and you're going to die because you don't have, okay, fine, drink a Gatorade because you're dying. But it is going to cause you harm in the long run.
Yeah.
And there's better options, right? Himalayan pink salt without even the honey. But if you need a little honey and water is going to nourish your cells. I mean, we all are devoid of minerals and vitamins in our diet because the topsoil, as you know, is depleting. Our food is depleted. So we do not have, magnesium is becoming an epidemic of people being depleted from magnesium. So we need to, I think, put these real food versions of electrolytes and minerals back into our diet with whole food salts.
Yes.
And foods that are grown organically or biodynamically that have them in them. Vitamins and minerals. It's common sense.
Mm-hmm.
You tell any generic person that knows nothing about food, they're going to know they need vitamins and minerals.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to know where to get them. Now, on the flip side, we're hydrating, right? Everyone's got whole house water filters. We've got RO systems. We're trying to alkaline our water. We're going to the water store, and it's all tap water that's been filtered.
Right.
Had pesticides, pharmaceuticals, microscopic pieces of toilet paper they find in tap water. It's going through our disgusting city sewer systems, fluoride, chlorine. It's horrible.
Yes.
So, and we're chugging water all day long trying to stay hydrated, and then we're depleting our minerals even further. So my philosophy is find natural spring water. Again, this is what humans evolved drinking.
Yes.
Any of the good spring water companies are using UV light. They're using mesh filters, all different sizes, to keep the water as natural as possible. And when I made Hydrate, it was the reason to do it was to get more magnesium and minerals into me in nature's ratio. We don't put, if you see electrolyte drinks with sodium chloride, potassium chloride, individual minerals listed,
right,
they have been stripped out of the whole food salts, often bleached, mixed with anti-caking agents made from corn, GMO
corn,
and then put back into your electrolyte drink in some ratio that some dude in a lab claims this is the ratio you need. And a lot of people get bloated. They're just processed minerals. They're not natural anymore.
A lot of them aren't even bioavailable.
Absolutely not. People look at our ingredients. They don't look at ingredients because most people don't. They look at the nutritional panel. They're like, oh, you barely have any, sodium, or you barely have any magnesium. This one has like 500 milligrams. I'm like, does it? You're not understanding nature. You think you're getting 500 milligrams of whatever, but you're not. And it's also a toxic mineral that's been super processed. How can you argue with nature? This is salt that comes out of a Pakistani cave.
Yeah.
It has purity levels that are tested, and it's in nature's ratio.
Right.
That is the ratio you need in your body on a daily level. So we didn't formulate this, and we don't talk even to athletes about it. We talk to normal, healthy families and humans that are trying to get a little bit more electrolytes and minerals in their diet because their water is so void of them.
Right.
I struggled to drink enough water my whole life. Why? Because I was drinking sugar and water didn't taste great to me.
Right.
So I was chronically dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to create something that also tasted really good. So we had to use organic lemon juice powder versus lemon flavoring. All those natural flavors, artificial flavors, very similar in their makeup.
Yeah.
And now there's organic flavors. This is another great example of organic processed food.
Yeah.
Total crap, totally processed. We take juice from a lemon that's organic, dry it, and that's where you get the lemon flavor. So it's super expensive.
Yeah.
We can make our product for probably a third of the cost. But I wouldn't do that. So we made this with all real food just because that's how we roll. That's what we do.
Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to tell you about Symbiotica's product called Rumi. And not only is Rumi an amazing sleep product that will enhance your dreaming and your psychic recovery, but Rumi's my favorite poet. So when a great product like that is coupled with my favorite poetry, there's only one thing I can do, and that's get Shervin to come down here and tell us all about how it works and why you should use it, because he formulated it. So Symbiotica has the master here. Go ahead and tell me, Shervin, what's up with Rumi?
Well, we wanted to call it Rumi, Paul, because it's, every time I read Rumi, I go back to my ancestors. It's almost like living through a dream poetry, a dance, if you will. And, being around athletes my entire life, being around, the collective that's always asking me about health and nutrition and wellness, I've been leaning towards sleep as being one of the number one ways, and probably more important than anything, as far as regeneration.
It is the most powerful medicine there is. But as you know, a lot of people today are not sleeping because of the stress, because of bad diet, because of medicating themselves with alcohol and chips and garbage food. So a lot of people really need a high-quality, natural, healthy, wholesome, nutritious sleep product, which is why I'm so excited about Rumi.
Yeah, instead of using antihistamines and pharmaceutical drugs and other ways to cope with lack of sleep, we wanted to hit it right where the Ayurvedic medicine knew where to take it.
Right.
And that's giving you with nourishing herbs like ashwagandha and lemon balm and passion flower. We also have cannabinoids in there, and we have other minerals in there that make it such a beautiful sleep tonic, and you can integrate the process with a smooth transition. Sleep for me is everything, and Rumi has lived up to all of its expectations, and it's one of our most requested formulas right now.
So there you go. Super nutrition while you sleep. It doesn't get better than that. All you've got to do is go to Symbiotica, CYMBIOTIKA.com, and on checkout, use your magical code, capital C, capital H, capital E, capital K 15. That's check 15 to get your discount, 15% on Rumi and anything else. So check out their other amazing products. I have not ever used any Symbiotica product that I didn't love and didn't work super well, or I wouldn't be telling you about it. This stuff's in my refrigerator right now, and it will be a great addition to yours. Enjoy.
And a little warning.
Oh, here comes more.
A little warning. It's extremely delicious. And so, you might find yourself sleeping, the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yes. So there you go. How about that? A medicine that's extremely delicious.
A dream within a dream.
A dream within a dream. And all you got to do is go to Symbiotica.com and use your code CHECK15 on checkout, all caps. Enjoy.
It's great to hear what you're sharing, because beyond the concept of an electrolyte drink, most athletes think, oh, it's just something you do when you exercise. But hearing you talk about it, what you're doing is you've actually found a pathway that uses the modern brainwashing and dogma about what people think they need to provide nutrients that their bodies are most probably lacking in. So it's really a way to deliver nutrition that's more important than the concept of a sports drink in and of itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really great way to put it. We've had elderly people take this every day, and they were dizzy, right? Because their blood pressure is too low. They don't drink enough water. They haven't salted their food since 1945. So they're totally void of, and even their doctors trying to tell them to get electrolytes in their body. And so it's great for them to have an option. It's not Gatorade, because that's what the doctors are prescribing, Gatorade. You go to cancer treatments and you're in the chemo room, they're giving you Gatorade.
Can you imagine? I mean,
right? It's so mind-boggling. So for me, that's exactly what it is. I do think electrolytes are minerals, right?
Yeah.
But not all minerals are electrolytes. What we need is minerals. People get so confused about what food even is. We don't even understand it. Michael Pollan said, our understanding of food science today is like the medical profession in the, I think he said like in the 1800s, right? We don't have any idea. It's like, oh, beta carotene, great for your eyes. He's like, well, what about the other 20 carotenes?
Right.
And what about the synergy of eating the whole food carrot?
Right.
We strip it out and put it in a pill. I think that we know what we're talking about. So that was really impactful for me. So I just try to leave food in its natural form. And when you drink it, you feel good. And that's how you feel when you eat at our restaurant, just because it's real food. I mean, I didn't make this stuff up. I told you, I'm not the smart one. I just have common sense. I got by on common sense. And to me, everyone's so confused. What do I do? What do I do? I'm just flip the package over and read the ingredients. If you don't understand what they are, that's all you got to know.
Well, the truth is, Kris, is you cannot really be smart without common sense. It's impossible.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can be so smart you're stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, look, how much money do we spend on a military budget and trying to get people to the moon while we're destroying the planet's ecosystem and resources? The oceans are dying, the Great Barrier Reef's dying, and we're so worried about getting to Mars, getting to the moon, and spending trillions of dollars on nuclear weapons. I mean, most people would think that those scientists and people with all their fancy degrees are smart, but that's not smart.
Yeah.
There's not even a word for that. I don't know what it is. It's confused is really what it is. It's like Lao Tzu says in the Tao Te Ching, if you can over sharpen a knife, and we all know that's true, but you can get so sharp you're dull or brittle or fragile. And I think we've gotten so caught in the scientific materialist paradigm of reductionism, that we've taken the life right out of the food by isolating things to the point that there is no life in them anymore.
And we've lost our common sense. I mean, the number one request I get as a nutritionist is, can you go to the grocery store with me? And people don't know how to feed themselves. They don't know how to shop. And I always remember, again, Michael Pollan saying, it's like, we have more food than we've ever had on the planet in the history of humanity. And we're overweight, undernourished. You know, you can buy food at the gas station. You can buy food at Staples. We have access to it everywhere, and we don't know how to feed ourselves.
I'm curious. You're right. Have you ever read the book titled Your Body's Many Cries for Water by Dr. Batman Gilage?
No.
Oh, it's a fantastic book. Your Body's Many Cries for Water. I don't know how to spell his last name. I think he's Hindu, but it's pronounced, at least I pronounce it, Batman Gilage. But you'll find it under Your Body's Many Cries for Water. I think you can get an audio. It's a very good book. But he really addresses the whole issue of hydration. But in his book, he says that only 1% dehydration of the central nervous system will cause significant psychological disorders. And I believe that's factual. And the book's really well done. It might be a great one for your library. There might be some good tips in there for you. Other than what we've discussed, are there any other common misconceptions about food and hydration that you think athletes in general or people in general have?
Well, I think just the biggest lesson I would say is to stop looking at the nutritional panel and look at the ingredients.
Yeah.
The only thing I look at the nutritional panel for now is sugar grams. But I can tell that anyway by, the list of ingredients. That's the best starting point that I can give people. And if they don't understand what an ingredient is now, they're so lucky they can just Google it. I mean, come on, it's right there. We have the information.
Yes.
And if you can't make it in your kitchen, then you probably shouldn't be buying it.
Yeah, I'll have to send you I have a little 1-page document I created for my patients and clients and students that's like 12 key points about nutrition. Some of the things are, the longer it lasts on the shelf, the worse it is for you. If you can't pronounce a word on the label, your liver won't like it. If it wasn't here 10,000 years ago, don't eat it.
Nice.
So just real basic things. And it's funny, I just did an interview with Laird Hamilton, who I've been a consultant to and therapist for since about 1995. And so I asked him what his diet philosophy was, and he said, well, actually, it's some real simple things that you taught me. And he was actually just stating all the stuff that was on my 1-page document.
That's great.
Yeah, it's cool because he has his own company now, Laird Superfoods, and very similar concept as what you're doing. But right back to the basics, I'm, if you know Autumn, then I'm sure you're hip to all this stuff, but we're in a pretty serious situation on the planet with almost no topsoil left. Some estimates say we've got about 50 to 60 years before we're completely out of topsoil. I'd love to hear your thoughts, if you have any, on what we need to do what we need to do collectively to regenerate and protect our topsoils.
I guess we need to really start finding farmers that are doing this regenerative agriculture. This is the way back. And if we stop buying conventional food, they'll stop doing it.
That's my approach.
We have all the power. We do.
I tell people that all the time.
It's true. We just have to make those hard decisions, and we have to, switch priorities in our life. When people are like, "Oh, it's too expensive or this or that," that it's true for a certain segment of our population. It's literally out of reach. But there's the majority of people that are in the middle class. They're just not prioritizing it well, and they can.
Yeah.
And it can actually be, you buy a whole chicken from a local farm, and then you make a few meals out of that, and then you make broth. That's actually way more economical than buying cut up chicken breasts. And so there are ways, when you do real food, organic, real food, whole foods versus conventional packaged foods, it's going to be cheaper. It's going to be cheaper. So, but it takes time, and it is a real issue. People are working all this 12 hours a day, and running around, and kids are going to like 50 different games, and it's a tough one.
That's one of the reasons I love Paleo Valley's products.
Yeah, exactly. They're the best to just have in your pocket. And
yeah, you can take a beef stick or a turkey stick, and you got something. I've been telling people for as long as I've been around, look, if you expect to get real food in airplanes and airports, you're a fool. If you think you're going to feed yourself and heal yourself, if you're paying me the money you're paying me and you're telling me that you don't have time to go find good food, I got news for you. All you got to do is go find some organic carrots, some celery, and get some real jerky meats. Those things don't need to be refrigerated. I've carried carrots all the way to Australia, been in airports and our airplanes 24, 25 hours, and those carrots are fine, those celery sticks are fine, and the jerky's fine. You've got to carry real food with you, and you will feel a lot better. You'll look a lot better. You'll get rid of skin problems, digestive problems, eliminative problems. And it's damn simple. At the end of the day, you're far better off eating some raw vegetables and some jerky than almost anything you can get anywhere. So it's lovely to see companies like Paleo Valley and Organifi. I love their products as well. They're simple, easy to use, nutritious. Now, of course, they're not going to be cheap, but it costs a lot of money to get real food from real farmers. And I tell people that's money going back into the soil. But there's lots of research showing, feeding studies showing not only animals, but human beings eat on average 30% less food if it's organically raised than commercially food, because the nutrients bring us to satiation sooner.
Right. Yeah, and that's a really good point. We used to do little street fairs with our bars and stuff, and people come up and like, "Oh, $3 for a bar." I'm like, Jesus, you're complaining about $3? I'm like, I can get a Cliff Bar for $1.19. I'm like, yeah, but how many do you have to eat to feel full?
Right.
He's like, oh yeah, I usually have like 3 on my ride. I'm like, right. So now you're already spending more than ours, and I guarantee you can eat this bar and you're going to feel full.
Right.
People eat half of it and feel full, and not only just the high quality fats, but the nutrients. Our bodies are starving of nutrients, and that tricks your brain into just keeping wanting to eat more. Yeah. And then you're actually spending more money on food that's ruining the environment and ruining your health. So it's cheaper to eat organic, real food in the end.
Totally cheaper. And it's actually contributing to the rehabilitation of the planet.
Mm-hmm. And people look now for the biodynamic certification,
which is
instead of the organic. It's rare. But if they can find the biodynamic seal on anything, I think it's really important to support those companies. Like all of the wine we have at GOODONYA, minus like 2 brands, is biodynamic. The other ones are organic. There's a guy in Spain who's been part of the organic movement there since '94, so we carry his wine. But everything else is biodynamic, and we are supporting those farmers that are literally growing and picking grapes on the moon cycle.
Yes,
and that it really does make you feel good to be able to have a glass and not have all those just toxic feelings that you get from, mass-produced red wine.
Yes.
So hopefully Pasture Bird Chicken, another company, right? They're local and they're in San Diego. So find them and support them. Go out to their farm. They're a small family farm. It's regenerating their soil out there. But, these are elitist kind of things right now a little bit, and it's not attainable for everybody. And that's a social justice issue. And it's really sad that people can walk into, there's a Walgreens within a 5-mile radius of like 95% of the US population. So these corporations like that we made a presentation to them. I'm like, if you put our drink, we used to make Hydrate in a bottle. If you put our drink in here over Gatorade, can you imagine the effect that you will have on the amount of people that are going in there and buying Gatorade versus this?
Yeah.
Like, you could literally save the world with small little decisions, but we didn't make it. We didn't make it in. They didn't really care about that.
Well, yeah, of course, money is the root of all evil, as the old saying goes. It's there's another issue here that I want to share. I know you're hip to this, but I want to share it for the listeners. Look, I've been doing this work, as I said, for 36 years. I've worked with too many people to count thousands of people, and people don't come pay the money I charge unless they're in trouble. And I've also I have people in my classes. I have people all over the world buying my courses. I'm a consultant for doctors and therapists and organizations all over the world. And I've had many, many, many people tell me they could not afford to buy organic food. And so I said, okay, let's have a look at what you're spending your money on. And in every single case, I find people that say they can't buy organic food, but they're buying 3 cups of coffee at Starbucks a day. They're spending money on subscriptions to Netflix and pornography channels. And so my point is, I personally feel probably, I would guess at least 50% of the people that say they cannot afford to eat the way we're talking about, actually it's really an issue of values. Mm-hmm. It's where are you spending your money and what is or isn't adding life to your life. Most people are just conditioned to medicate themselves with things that they've incorporated into their lifestyle, but really are part of the disease that they're suffering from. So I think if people really got honest about it and said, okay, where is my money really going? And which of those things are adding to my health problems or my mental, emotional problems? And which of those things are monies I could divert into food? I think a huge amount of people that think they can't afford organic food really actually could. Yeah.
I think that you hit it on the beginning, is that we never were taught to value food.
No,
we weren't taught about food at all through school. It's not part of our education. So
yeah.
What are you going to do when you're in college? You're going to go buy Pop-Tarts and you're going to buy things that are easy to cook because you didn't learn this kind of stuff from your parents.
Right.
Especially us that grew up in this generation. It was about, we took tortillas with margarine and stuck them in the microwave and we made little snacks for ourselves because our mom was at work. We just grew up in this processed food age and it's all coming to a head now.
Yeah. I was fortunate because, my parents are farmers and health food nuts and always have been. And almost everything we ate came right off the farm. So
that's incredible.
It is. And, one of the things I observed young, all the way back in junior high school and, in my days in sports is that I lived out in the country on Vancouver Island. And all the guys that I went to school with, most of them, I would say probably, especially the guys on the sporting teams, I'd say probably about 70% of the guys on any of the sports teams, be it football, hockey, basketball, baseball, were all the children of farmers. Wow. And we would destroy the city teams. And I observed that there was definitely something that we farm boys had that the city boys didn't have. And as I grew up and did all my nutritional studies, it dawned on me one day, we were all eating food off the farm.
Yeah.
It wasn't that we were training harder or better, because a lot of these young athletes are very serious about their training, but they're eating Kraft cheese and junk all the time. But the farm boys were just more tough. They were just more durable. And so, and it's interesting too, have you ever seen or read the book, The Living Soil and the Holly Experiment by Lady Eve Balfour?
No.
It was
You're
first.
like a walking library.
Well, yeah, I have a very comprehensive library, and I've been studying this stuff forever. It was first published in 1946. She's actually the woman that basically came up with the term organic. She was the founder of the concept. She's one of the pioneering founders of the British Soil Association, which, by the way, is a great resource for you if you ever want to find studies on stuff like this.
Okay.
The British Soil Association, you can become a member and get access to their library. But she quotes, she cites in there that all the way back in the 40s, kids were having so much problem from eating what she referred to as processed food, and this is in the 40s. And she highlights a doctor who was the doctor for a New Zealand private school, and they switched over to organic food because they saw that there's so much of the illnesses were coming from the food. They tracked it down within the school, and I guess the doctor was pretty smart. And so they decided to invest in their own farm, and they started their own organic farm. And she talks about in the book how all the kids used to giggle whenever someone new would come to the school because typically the kids would get sick. Why? Because when they started eating food at school, it was organic and they were getting all these vitamins and minerals and their immune systems were turning on. So it was cleaning house.
Oh, wow.
And what she talked about in there, though, that was really interesting, she said that the doctor noticed in the first year that they switched to their own farmed organic food that he had been tracking the injuries amongst the rugby players. And he said the injuries went from something like, I'm guessing because it's been years since I read the book, but like 46 injuries to only 3 or 4 injuries. And his conclusion was that ligaments and joint capsules were so much stronger when athletes ate organic food than when they ate commercial food, that the same sport and the same beatings did not have nearly the damaging effect on their body.
Wow.
And that book was published in 1946. It's a very, very profound, deep book that I think you would probably not be able to put down once you started reading it. The Living Soil and the Hawley Experiment by Lady Eve Balfour.
Well, what's fascinating about that is like, what were they eating? What were the two different, I always just imagine back in the 40s, it was all good. I wonder what the bad food was back then.
Well, the bad food was
not as bad as ours now.
It was monocropped and they were using chemicals on it.
Still in the 40s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And they were using chemical fertilizers. So, yeah.
So you got to figure just with that, you see the difference. And then now look how much further we've gone with genetically modifying foods and then the processing aids and all that kind of stuff that they probably maybe weren't doing because they didn't have as much packaged food back then.
No.
But it was just the sheer chemical fertilizers. That's so interesting.
Yeah. And also the processing of food versus just farm to table, cook, farm, kitchen, table. And when I was watching Jamie Oliver's show, he was showing, he was doing tours through schools, and almost every school he went to in the kitchen, they did not cook anything. It was all out of packages and it was microwave. There was almost no cooking involved, which just blew my mind. I'm like, wow, I had no idea it was that bad. It really made me a bit concerned. I'm like, this is bad.
It was really bad. One of my first jobs was in 6th grade in the cafeteria because I got out of class early. So I got to go and I sold the milk, chocolate milk or regular milk for $0.10. And I took the money and gave the kids the milk. And I thought I was so cool because I got to work and I got a free lunch if I did that. So that's how I got my lunch. I started working for it. I was probably 11.
That's cool. At least you learned how to make something happen early. I noticed that I saw on your website that you've been keeping your restaurant open through the pandemic and all that. I'm curious just what your general take is on the pandemic. Do you feel it's a legitimate threat or do you feel it's a plandemic?
I like that word. Yeah. I mean, you can't discount the people dying. I feel like, first of all, we don't probably get the right information. I mean, how can you think we get the right information when we're hearing all these conflicting things? So it's tough when you just hear these stats, and different things. I feel like our job is to keep our immune system strong, and that's all we got. The COVID and the viruses and all the viruses that are on the planet are going to be here for, the rest of the time humans are here.
Yeah.
And so if I'm just looking at it like, okay, if I have to wear a mask because the health department tells me to wear a mask, I'm going to wear a mask. Maybe I don't spit on someone and it doesn't spread, fine. We can't be open without wearing masks. So my staff has to wear a mask 8 hours a day. We get, people coming into the restaurant without a mask and they're complaining. And I'm like, look, Jesus Christ, you're standing in line for 2 minutes. We walk you to the table and you take your mask down. Can you at least do that so we don't get shut down? Why are you yelling at us? And now we're like mask police. So it's a bit of a shit show. And it's really frustrating to have to deal with people and all their different opinions. My opinion is just, if we have to do this one thing when you're only within 6 feet of each other, just do it. Because I have a business to run. I have farmers to support. I have employees to support.
Yeah.
I could have 40 employees on unemployment, or I can have them working.
Right.
What would you prefer? And so it's frustrating on a lot of levels. Do I think that it matters? No, personally, I don't.
No.
We're touching the food with our hands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so stupid. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
But it's part of this game that I feel like we have to do to stay open. I think some restaurant in our town just got shut down, a bar. There was just a shit show in there of people not, staying 6 feet. And, we had 15 cases in Encinitas. Now we have 30. Now we have 70. So will they roll us back? I don't know.
Well, part of the problem is they don't even actually have a legitimate test for it. It's all manufactured.
No, the whole thing is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
The whole thing, I really, really think the whole thing is ridiculous, and it's put a lot of fear. And I can't believe it's gone this far.
I can't either. It's a threat to our whole national economy and world economy. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but Bill Gates has a patent on the coronavirus, on one of the versions of the coronavirus. And
I really do think it's the beginning. Could it be really manufactured just so they can sell more vaccines? Is it that evil? It's evil.
Yes, it could very well be. I've spoken to many experts.
Yeah.
But without going into a long discussion of that, that's, by the way, my podcast with Leslie Manukian gets into the detail. So you'd probably find that fascinating. I did a YouTube video, which surprisingly never got taken down, which I'm pretty impressed with, but it's called Your COVID-19 Protection Plan. I think you'd really dig it.
Cool.
So, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Paul Check Live.
Okay, I'm on that. Yeah, it's frustrating. We've had employees quit over having to wear the mask 8 hours. I don't blame them, but it's a lot of money down the drain when they do that.
Yes, it's hard to train people.
It's takes months, especially at our restaurant. You have to be a nutritionist just to ring somebody in half the time.
Yeah.
Not to mention teach them the common sense of how to work in a restaurant. So there's a lot. But it's a frustrating time. But I just keep telling my staff, fear is going to just make your immune system weaker.
Yeah.
So we are doing a good thing. We're selling healthy food.
Yeah.
So I've got colloidal silver in there for them. We drink hot teas. I try to tell them to keep their immune system strong, keep their sugar down, get rest, all the stuff that
Yeah.
And none of them have been sick, and we've been exposed to thousands and thousands of people. We had a couple people go out last week with a fever, and we were like, oh boy, here it is. We're finally going to have a COVID case. Both of them were tested and they were negative. So,
Well, there's also the real issue of the nocebo. The placebo effect in reverse is called the nocebo effect.
What's that?
Well, statistically, the placebo effect ranges from 38 to 64% effective, sometimes as high as 72% based on extensive studies. So you know what the placebo is, right?
Yeah.
Well, the nocebo is if you tell somebody that they're going to get sick, they have equally the same statistical likelihood of getting sick. So if you're making billions and billions of dollars off of medicines and drugs and all this other shit, and you can convince everybody that they're in a pandemic and that this virus is everywhere, the research suggests that psychologically they'll produce the symptoms and contract the illness just by the pure suggestion of it.
Wow. I mean, there was when 2 went out sick, the next day, 3 more went out.
Of course.
And all of them came back negative. One girl came back and said, "Oh, it was my period allergies. And I didn't really have a fever, but I thought I did." So I think it's exactly what you're saying, and now we have to pay them emergency sick leave because they've got to stay out for 72 hours and get the test and all this. And within a few days, they all felt fine. And then they all now 10 days later, some of them got their results negative, and we have to pay them sick leave the whole time. I mean, it's not their fault.
No,
but it puts a lot of strain on a small business, and
it's
just a shit show.
It is. It really is. By the way, just for you, for your own personal knowledge and for the listeners, the go-to place for top-notch, really well looked into information on all this stuff and much more is greenmedinfo.com.
Okay.
Green Med Info. It's loaded with experts on this topic, and it unveils the whole shit show. And many very top scientists letting the cat out of the bag, doctors telling the truth, how the American Medical Association has put mandates that they're supposed to put COVID on the death certificate of everybody that dies, even if they can remotely suspect it. And very, very unethical practices that are just unbelievable. And this is coming right from the government, right down to the bottom. And it's a pretty sick situation we're facing.
So what are we going to do when they mandate we all have a COVID vaccine? That's like they're making kids get vaccines. Well, now. What do you do as a parent there?
What you do is I tell people we all have to become a warrior at some point in our lives. And the only way you can be effective as a warrior is determine what your values are and what you're willing to fight for and what you're not willing to fight for. And we're at a point now, in my opinion, where we either have to have a revolution from the inside out where we say that's enough government lies, enough manipulation, enough bullshit. And, look what happened in Italy. They had so many people dying from vaccinations and all sorts of problems in the government. Over 1 million people stormed the parliament buildings, and they literally kicked the government out and voted a new government in.
Wow. And,
really the people that are playing this game are just a handful of people controlling the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there's what is there, 379 million people in the United States or something like that? We just have to stand up for ourselves and say, that's enough. You can't tell me what I can do with my own body. You can't tell me what I can do with my children. And you're infringing upon my constitutional rights as a human being and as a citizen of the United States. And, look at all the manipulation of people taking information down. We are losing our freedom of speech. We're losing everything. And at some point, people have to decide, am I going to live in an invisible jail, or am I going to stand up for what I believe in? And I tell people, look, Mahatma Gandhi took India back from the British government, who was very, very violent and very dangerous. And he did it with nonviolence. He was able to lead his country to a nonviolent takeover of their own country and literally ousted the British whole empire. If Gandhi can take his country back nonviolently, we can take ours back nonviolently. But we just got to get clear on what our values are and how important our children are and what our future is. Or we're going to end up in a situation where there's nobody here but sick, lost, confused people that are spending every penny they make to pay insurance bills, doctor's bills, and continue to make a very few people even richer, which just makes the whole thing even worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I'm reading a whole series on Julius Caesar and Rome and the whole, and it happened, whoever had the numbers took over the Senate and took over the government. So it's super fascinating. Yeah, but you're right. We do have the power as the people. And right now it's so easy just with what you're spending your money on.
Yes, it is.
It's a great point. That's our biggest vote.
The bigger the corporation, the bigger the appetite, and the more sensitive they are to starvation. And I used to, we come from Southern California where there's water shortages. It used to be. We've had a lot of water lately, but I tell people, look, there's a lot of people, there's over 2 billion people in the world that don't have fresh water. If every one of us flushed the toilet one less time a day, if 6 billion people flush the toilet one less time a day, that's 3 to 5 gallons of flush. Do you realize that would be enough water by not flushing the toilet once to give everyone that needs water by just doing something that simple,
crazy.
So really, I tell people it's not like it has to take some big arduous effort. Just do something that's moving in the right direction and make a contribution and do something that fits your values that you love. If you love to share information by the internet, share websites that tell the truth, educate, sing songs, write songs that tell the truth, paint pictures, do whatever it is that you love to do that contributes to the awakening of our sleepy population that's losing its freedoms and its health and its vitality. And if we all do a little bit every day of what we love to do, like you have a whole chain of restaurants that's part of the solution. I have an education system. And interestingly enough, we've had booming sales through the whole COVID thing. And so have several of my other friends that own education businesses on health and supplement businesses. Their sales are going through the roof. We had our
sign.
Yeah, we had our third largest month of sales in the history of the Institute in the first month of the COVID. I think we had 200 and something people sign up for my Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1 online, which is unprecedented because people are realizing I've got to start taking care of myself.
Yeah, good for them. That's exactly the right path.
Exactly. That's the only way out. Education is the only way you can learn how to live. There's no other way around it.
No other way. No.
Yeah. Doctors aren't going to teach you. The drug companies aren't going to teach you. And the funny thing about this is the word doctor actually means teacher. Isn't that paradoxical? If you study the roots of the word doctor, I believe in Latin, it means teacher. And so we have an education system that doesn't teach a medical system that doesn't teach us anything except how to be sick. What are some of your favorite resources for sound, reliable health information, food products, or otherwise that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I do go to Dr. Mercola's site. I feel like he's pretty well researched. So I go there a lot. I go to Weston A. Price when I kind of want to see about traditional foods and maybe how they're supposed to be prepared, those kind of things. And then just podcasting, health podcasts, and listening and reading and everything. Like I've mentioned Michael Pollan and honestly, Paul Yu and Sean and Krista and the last 5 years, I got to be honest, has been head down in the restaurant.
Right. Yeah.
So there was a big chunk of my life that was really learning every day. And now it's been a lot of doing this last 5 years.
Well, thank you.
We just have the Encinitas location right now. Thank God. So just one restaurant and just our products. And
once you learn the foundation principles, you don't really need to know more than that unless you're going to be a scientist or some kind of specialist. But we're really suffering from a lack of basics. It's not like this is hard. Eat real food from real soil, drink clean water, go to bed when you're tired, move your body, and have a dream bigger than your crisis so you have a reason to get your ass off your couch. Really, I summarized, my teachings right there.
Yeah, it's true. And I even got a little bored with it after a while because for 10 years it was nonstop every day.
Yeah.
While I was working out, I was always listening to a podcast, always reading a book. And now everyone's like, "Oh, have you seen this movie? Have you seen this movie?" And I was like, you know what? No, I'm good. It's not like I'm done educating myself, but I also, a lot of those documentaries are just a bunch of nonsense funded by like vegan groups. And you got to really look at that. And like I said, I feel like you said, the fundamentals are there. And we're busy now running the restaurant and trying to create products. And I'm looking all over the world for fruit powder so I can make another one besides lemon. And I want a fruit powder that doesn't have silicone dioxide in it. And that's like impossible to find, So it's silly things like that, because there's hidden ingredients within powders. And
yes. Are you familiar with the pawpaw fruit?
No, pawpaw fruit.
You should look into that. Pawpaw has very high protein levels. It's actually probably getting close to meat, and it's super tasty, super good. A buddy of mine grows it. I've got an interview with him, Michael Judd. He's a permaculture expert. So if you look through my podcast for Michael Judd, he talks all about the pawpaw and even gives a place that sells it. They sell it frozen, but it might be an excellent ingredient for you to look for if you can find a supplier of it, if you can find an organic source of pawpaw, because it really has very high protein levels. And the reason I research stuff like that is because a lot of vegans and vegetarians are suffering from lack of protein, and the pawpaw is a fruit that actually has almost meat levels of protein in it.
Well, I struggle to eat as much meat as I probably should. I just don't actually kind of gravitate towards it and like it. So that sounds like something that I would love as well.
Yeah. Where can people find out more about GOODONYA and any of the other resources or products such as your hydrate drink that you'd like to share?
Everything's on our site, GOODONYAOrganic.com.
And it's for those of you listening, it's just good on ya altogether. GOODONYA.
Organic.com. Yeah.
Oh, it's GOODONYA Organic?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't really.
GOODONYAOrganic.com. Some guy has GOODONYA.com and for like 20 years won't sell it to me. I'm like, he's not even using it. I'm like, come on, guy.
Yeah.
So we're organic, GOODONYAOrganic.com.
Okay, good. That's funny because I just typed in GOODONYA.com and maybe Google knew what I was looking for. It took me right to your site.
Yeah, there's another GOODONYA, a skincare cream company in Florida.
Okay.
Sometimes people get us confused with those guys. They're a small little company out there. And they do sort of healthy skincare, not at our level that we would do, but pretty good, I guess.
Well, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. It's been an interesting journey, and it's fun to hear about your career as an Olympic athlete and all the things you learned the hard way. But those are the lessons that really stick with us, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. I mean, I have literally a Coca-Cola tattoo on my ankle. It's permanent, so without that journey, there'd be no GOODONYA and what we're doing now. So I'm grateful for that time. And I'm grateful I got plugged into the natural community of Encinitas so I could heal my body and then just sort of give back as much as I can now with what we're doing.
Well,
it makes me feel good. Napoleon
Hill said a long time ago, are you familiar with the book Think and Grow Rich?
No.
Oh, it's a classic, long story, but Napoleon Hill is, sold umpteen millions of books called Think and Grow Rich. But he said something in there that's really true. He said, behind every cloud of gray is a silver lining. You just got to look for it. And I think with everything we're talking about, as well as I do, people have to be ready to learn. They have to be ready to take responsibility for themselves. They have to be ready to do the work to be healthy and to create something out of themselves. And I think one of the things that's coming from all this, we're realizing that the whole planet really needs our help, that we can't just keep trashing it. We're learning that we can't trust scientists. We can't trust doctors. We can't trust governments. We can't trust lawyers. We can't trust bankers, which means we really have to look at ourselves. As Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching, the government always reflects the people. So does the medical establishment. So we're at a time now where we all have to say, look, we all need each other. The world needs our help now. She's sick. And so I think all of this is really bringing us to, it's opening the door for a human realization that we've got to get more honest with each other. We've got to get corporate interests out of the government. We got to get religious interests out of the government. We got to bring the government back to a governing body that's for the people, by the people. And we need a revolution, and it's going to take people that care enough to get involved, or the gray stays gray and there's no silver lining. But I think that, as I said, if you do what you love to do, which is the things you're doing, and I do what I love to do, such as sharing people like you and running a health institution, and we all just become aware of what we can do that fits our personality and our lifestyle to contribute, then we'll all start moving in the right direction. I don't think it'll take us that long. If we keep doing what we're doing and playing dead and watching TV and being good little mice in a lab cage, the future doesn't look very good, not only for us, but for the planet.
Yeah. My favorite quote is the answer to any question you have, you'll find in nature.
Yeah.
That was in The Power of One, the Bryce Courtney book and movie. And it's a lot more simple than it seems. I think we intuitively know what's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Especially with food.
Yeah.
We know it. We really do. So we just have to just make little changes, one product at a time, one little segment at a time. Go to the store with me. I'm going to be in the toothpaste aisle for 2 hours. But, once I find my brand, then I'm good. And then move on to the next brand. So
yeah,
one step at a time and we can get there.
I use David's. Have you ever heard of David's toothpaste?
No.
It's quite good. It's got charcoal in it, and it's expensive. My wife always tells me how expensive it is. I don't know how much it is, but it cleans my mouth really good. And
okay, I'll look at that one.
If you find something wrong with it, tell me. But my inner sense is, wow, this is really good stuff. So once someone gave me a tube, or Penny bought a tube, I don't know, but I just fell in love with it because it really does a good job of cleaning my teeth and leaving my mouth feeling good. And it's very minimal ingredients, got just charcoal and a few other things, and that's about it.
David's maybe not the most clever name, but besides that, people are like, how'd you make up GOODONYA? I'm like, well, I spent a lot of time in Australia, getting our butts kicked by their national team. But Chris's Cafe, I don't know, sounds a little boring. So I was always trying to think of a name, something cool sounding.
Yeah, good on you, mate.
Funny. Good on you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, lots of love. Thank you for everything. Thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for putting up all that shit you got to put up from people to run a good health food restaurant. And don't forget to take some time to play. One of the problems we have in our culture is we forget to just play and do things that we don't have any attachment to the outcome. Singing, dancing, reading books, watching a good movie.
Yeah.
You can... I went through a midlife crisis when I was 50 because I just put so much effort into trying to help people that I just burned myself out. And I realized, you can't save the world. You can just do your best to share your love. And if you do more than that, you become part of the problem. So it's easy when you're someone who's really trying to do something good for people and, you're running multiple businesses. You can find yourself being a person promoting health that's burned out. And I've been there. So my gift to you is a reminder to play a little bit.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for all you do. It was good talking to you.
Thank you. You too. And I'll look forward. Maybe I'll get lucky and run into your restaurant when I'm there next time.
All right. I'll get some dark meat in there and load up the avocados.
Yeah. It was just for me because my choices are so limited and I typically need a fair bit of dark bird meat or salmon or something with fat in it, or I just walk around starving. So, but either way, of all the places in Encinitas, you're one of the only places that I'll go to. And I know that I can eat some extra avocado and order some chicken sausage. And I walk out of there feeling like I've ate real food and I feel good. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. Lots of love and look forward to seeing you along the way.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Living 4D with Paul Chek and today's guest, Kris Buchanan. You can find Kris online at GOODONYAOrganic.com. Follow her on Facebook and Instagram at GOODONYA Organic. And if you're in San Diego, California, make sure to take time to eat at her restaurant, located in Encinitas on Historic Route 101, half a block to the beach. Kris is giving Paul's listeners a 15% discount off her fabulous Hydrate electrolyte and mineral powder. Go to goodonyaorganic.com/hydrate and use the promo code GOODONYAPaul. That's GOODONYAPaul. Follow Paul on Instagram and Twitter at Living4D Podcast or on his YouTube podcast channel, youtube.com/Living4D with Paul Chek. You can watch more on Paul's blog at paulchecksblog.com and at the Czech Institute's new streaming media site, czekiva.com.